Good job, LJN. Every now and again, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. This is the Imperial Skulls of Honor podcast. I'm Josh Folan.
And I'm Jay Baxtron.
And we are going to be bullshitting about the formative years of console gaming as we revisit the periodicals that covered it again. Miss Jaffe just blew the whistle, so Todd is launching his brand new Nerf Turbo as high as he can in the schoolyard parking lot, and he's called it a full 500 ball. All the marbles are on the line for this high step through GamePro issue 18. Can you bring it down and capture the fleeting lunchtime recess glory it'll buy you, Loric disciples?
Oh, yeah.
Link to the issue is in the show notes, as it always is. Please rate and review the podcast. If you post it, we'll read it here. Give us validation of self-worth or ridicule us if it is also funny. And what are we jamming on now, Jay? What are you jamming on now? Do you remember?
So, yeah. I do remember. That was not the issue. First thing I'm jamming on, Raiden 4 Mikado Remix. So,
Flying shooter, right? This is the flying shooter, yeah, right?
Yeah, so last time we talked about the predecessor. We had talked about his predecessor, Raiden 3, and I'd gotten both games. I'd picked both up, thankfully, and Raiden 3 was always a blast. I actually decided, you know what, I'm gonna try the fourth one. Let's see what that's all about. And it's a lot of fun, man. It's what you would expect. It's similar to 3.
I was just gonna say it's what it's all about. It's probably very similar to 3.
Oh yeah, very similar to 3. But then there's some weapon twists and changes. You have proton lasers that you can select in. Like, on each run, you can decide how you want your proton laser to form. Like, it can either split in 3 different, like, seeking rays, or it can, like, just do this twist thing where it kind of finds everything on the screen. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's a blast. So, that's really fun.
Do they have a... Because, like, I'm always trying to understand, like, how could they advance this genre? Playing no modern ones at all, really. Is there like interesting? Is it just a basic toggle or something to go through the different types, or is there some sort of cool selection? Fucking menu system.
No, you have to select those at the beginning of each run. So like at the beginning of the game, that's all you do is select it. But then remember, this is the type where it rotates through the different weapons, and each weapon you choose has an upgrade path. So if it's blue, if you grab it when it's red, it's like the spread weapon like you would see on Contra type of thing. If you grab it when it's blue, it's like a straightforward laser beam, which is the most powerful thing that there is. But if you grab it when it's purple, then it turns into like the photon beam that I talked about, which either spreads into 3 powerful beams, or like it's this twisty thing which like heat seeks everything in its path. And so that's pretty fun. And then they have the bombs as well. But they also have this overkill mode, which I don't really quite understand yet, where each enemy that you defeat, which like above a certain class, like not just tiny little ships, but like each enemy that's like of a certain size has a meter once you defeat it. And like the quicker you defeat it, you get a higher overkill, and that gets you more points, I think. And those points, as I understand it, contribute to like a P getting like floating when an enemy gets defeated, and the P basically is max power. So once you get that, like you just are like the god walking amongst mere mortals, you know what I mean? So I think that's the way it works. And so that mode is fun. But another twist that they have, in addition to like, obviously it's co-op, you can have 2 people play at the same time, either on separate screens doing their own thing and just like competing for score, or clearly on the same screen together, which is how I like to play it with the kids. Yeah, and you have the option to, I think, as you're playing along, the more you do, the more you can unlock. And one of those things is not just different ships, but a ferry. So instead of like a flying ship, you can select to be this ferry. And I think there are multiple of them, but the ferry has different attacks. The ferry still has like, the same power-ups like land for the ferry that they do for the ship, but they act different. So instead of like the photon beam being like
that
Are you excited? Does the sound of fairies like make you super excited?
No, there's a game in this fucking issue, that Arrow, whatever it was, from Renovation, that has this exact thing where you turn it. It's got the robot and the ship, and you can switch between them interchangeably while playing. We'll obviously talk about it later, but like you're describing a game that I just played, and like.
But this is far better. That game sucks. This game is
strongly disagree. We'll talk about that later.
Whoa! That's crazy talk.
We'll talk about that later.
Yes, but no, I mean, this is like the fairy's a blast because like the photon, instead of being like a laser, is kind of like these bubbles that are really like they have a different flight path. It's almost like crop dusting, but they are like they detonate, so that's pretty cool. And instead of like the blue beam, she has like multiple beams which kind of like track left and right. So it's fun because it adds like, you know, another level of variability so you can switch things up as you go through. So that's been a blast, and I take offense to you comparing such a masterpiece to such a game that we will talk about later, but now I'm really, really excited to talk about this freaking game later. After that, playing a lot of COD, you know, Zombies is still the game, still my mode that I enjoy the most. But man, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like they need to add more content to it though. Like for a mode that, like I know there's a lot in Call of Duty. There's so many different modes you can do, like I enjoy them. But Zombies being like the mode that it is, as much room, I guess, that they have to play with. Like it's like a giant sandbox and there's so much that they can do and it's so much fun. But it's like there's not enough to keep you going for a game that's meant to be played all the time. You know, it's just, I don't know, they need more bosses, more missions, more something. And I'm definitely not the type of person to ever like speedrun a game and then tell a game dev like, hey, you need more content. Like I hate it when people do that. That's not me. But for something like this, that is a live service that's meant to be played regularly. It just feels like, I don't know, I kind of come to it. When you have good gear, you kind of come in with your friends. You're like, all right, guys, what's our motivation this time? What are we going to do? You know, there's a couple things we can still do once we get our stuff together. But
that's what you're going to do. That's
I mean, it's don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I just want to go in and take the highest level gear I have and just mow everything down and just not even care and just that's it. But other times I want to actually advance and, you know, do new things.
I'll see. Jay, I have good news for you. Subnautica 3 is coming and we can do science and actually feel accomplished at the end of our co-op adventure together as opposed to just killing a bunch of stuff and it feeling repetitive. So good news.
If it is co-op, that is one thing I will always say and one reason I love the gaming industry. If it is co-op, I will give it a try. Like let us I will try any adventure co-op together. If it sucks, that might only be one time, but I'll definitely give it a try.
Well, I'll talk about it, but I don't think I put it in here, but yeah, I have very interesting co-op news for something that I can't believe I co-op for.
All right. Well, I cannot wait to talk about that. But one thing I have not been co-oping on is NBA 2K24. I have a love-hate relationship with this game. It's so good. Dude, it's so good. It's like
every time you say NBA 2K, whatever.
I know. You just get a visceral reaction.
I have non-flashbacks of missing layups is what I have.
Dude, so that is what has been happening to me this last week. This last week, I don't know what it is, man. It's like I'm playing the game. I have Shaq now. He dominates. It's great. But just like the level of the amount of layups I've missed in a game, like I'm still winning by like 10, 12. But like they changed it enough to where you don't get like 3 stars in the mode I'm playing for defeating a team like at the highest mode. You have to defeat a team at a certain level by like 15. So like missing those layups could screw you up. You end up winning by 8 and you only get like 2 stars and I got to play this whole damn team again. And then I'm just like pissed off about it. I don't understand what's going on there. Somebody who's like great at NBA 2K, please let me know what I'm doing wrong. I've looked at the options. I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? Like, I don't. Yes, I know that if you're wide open, you should always make it pretty much, but that's not even the case. If the more contested you are, the less likely you are to make a layup. But sometimes, man, like LeBron is just he's gonna make a freaking layup over somebody who's 5'10". I'm sorry. Like, you're not gonna tell me that dude is stopping him unless he's fouling LeBron. Like, get out of here. Like, get out of here. That's all I have to say about that.
That's how I remember.
Like, do you disagree? Like, do you disagree with that statement? Come on. Like, if I'm guarding LeBron, like, he's getting that layup every time unless I like do some
I watched
heroic
LeBron
stuff.
play this year. He's pretty old, but he probably still make that.
Exactly. And then last, man, the one thing that we have dipped our toe in, we haven't gotten too far in yet, but is really exciting so far. Baldur's Gate 3.
You started it.
Yeah, we started it, man.
We got back on it.
Into it.
We got back on it.
Oh,
chugging. Yeah, we're chugging into we're in Baldur's Gate now in the city, which is I think I probably already said is seemingly what the whole third act is. And yeah, we're chugging. I think it'll get done.
Nice.
It feels like it just needs to get done, though. I mean, I don't know. I am like, we kind of like, I told you we were kind of stuck, and like there was this really hard battle, and we just needed to strategize better, and we were able to knock that out, and it gave us all this new purpose, and that has reinvigorated me emotionally and mentally, that there's things on the quest log. I understand what they are. I see them. I see the end goal for them, and it's given us some more motivation. I think
what to do.
that we'd been kind of wavering for a while, which that's probably the biggest thing about that game, and that was the thing with the Divinity Sins. It's the same thing, same company, same thing. So I think it's in their DNA a little bit to just have so much going on that you can kind of, especially if there's any delay between when you're picking it up and playing in it, you can kind of get a little bit of fuck, what is there? I don't even, what do I do even? Yeah.
Oh, I hate that so much.
So that's probably the only gripe, but it is just so involved. There's so many tangents and shit that like, it's cool. I want that, but I also, it's like gamer, I want everything. Give me everything I want and make it perfect for me, just me, which is obviously unrealistic. But it's just like, it's so too much, but not, like, I don't know. At times it's too much, and it feels a little bit like a job.
Wow,
but it's good.
I definitely have not gotten to that level yet.
I'll be surprised if you finish it. The way you kind of fucking ADHD around on games, I'll be super surprised if you finish that game.
Hey, no. If a game is meant to be finished, I will finish it. Like, there are certain games that I'm getting into, I will play them. Like, play through Diablo, play through COD campaign, play through Starfield. I'll definitely play through the games that I want to actually play through. Assassin's Creed, like, I will play
recording?
through those. What's that?
You recording?
So that's the only thing. Like, as long as, that is the main challenge, is making sure we're both, are we awake, able, kids in bed, able to actually play together and like put the time in. So that's the only limitation. Like,
and that's the thing too.
How long will that take?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not. That's probably one of the bigger impediments, especially if you're playing as like this regular co-op thing. I bet Jab would attest to this too. Although they kind of do it seemingly more structured, where they're like, oh, it's 9:00 on Thursday, so all that kind of like limbo. Yeah, that limbo goes out the window. Whereas if you're doing it as a couple thing, it's like, want a Baldur's Gate tonight? Like, sure, yeah, okay. And you finish dinner, and you're like, like, because it is, you can't just, there's no point in jumping in for 27 minutes. Like, it's a waste of time. You're, by the time that time is up, you might not even have figured out what you want to do yet. So it is very, like, if you got to have at least, an hour plus is, I think, absolute minimum.
It's going to be like, all right, the kids are in bed. All right, it's 7:30 go time. Like, I know we have 2 hours-ish before any kind of tiredness starts setting in.
Right.
We got to get going.
So, yeah, that's the real life friction might be the hardest part about it, more so than anything in game. But it is a long, involved process. So
it was funny, though. Like, when we first started, we started so late in the night. Like, we started after we were already tired. It was after 9:00.
Oh,
so we
God,
were building. We built our character and everything. We started going through, and we weren't that much paying attention to. We're tired, so we're just trying to fight. We're not paying attention to what is actually happening, and we were getting mopped up. We were just like, what is happening? We got to go to bed. Just forget it. So like the next day we came back at it and we we're like, oh, we were too tired to understand these people are just fighting each other. We just need to go this way, and we were fine.
And that's that is the coolest part about it is if you allow yourself. I already told you some of the when I first started that pushing that spider off the ledge. That whole story, that game allows you a puzzle solving creative freedom that I don't know has ever been matched in that kind of game. It's so not railroaded. And if you allow yourself to explore and try things and, be creative and don't just, I just got to kill this thing. Because that is how those games can get and feel. That game, you don't have to play it like that. There is almost always another solution to just fighting something, So if you want to play that way, you can. And there's different, I was trying to get into this room the other night. I'm and I told you go off and do your own things. You don't have to stay together. You probably won't stay together a lot of times.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a divide and conquer vibe for sure. And, I was trying to get into, I had got to this thing and I'm okay, I can't, the lock pick thing is too high for me to roll. I burn a bunch of fucking things trying to get lucky and hit on it. I was fuck, I gotta figure out another solution. So I'm off trying to find a potion to fucking to up my thing on the roll, and I'm focused on that. And then I realize that Amy has wandered into the room via another means and basically ruined my quest. That I had been. I
made it irrelevant.
I just dedicated 90 minutes to trying to solve this one problem because I didn't even see or think of another avenue towards it, and she just wanders into it, and fucking solves the thing, totally just by chance, So and that's the kind of. She didn't open that door either. She just got in another way. So you can there's just so much freedom to it. That's part of the parallelization, perhaps, is that there is not that linearity that you can just power through, but that's also what makes it cool, so.
Dude, that's what I think that's also what made even getting the character skill selection set up.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, every time I was thinking, me, I'm always, from the days of me and Courtney playing together with starting with Guild Wars, I've loved... me, sorcerer mage class. Let me just find the most damage, powerful, cool, spell I can find. But man, looking at the types of spells, I'm wait a minute. This pushes something. Wait, this
sucks having
this
to pick stuff.
I'm wait a minute. I could do that. This could be useful. I'm that could be useful. That could be useful. I could see all these random things which I normally wouldn't do. Because I'm always damage.
That's the positive side of it, perhaps. But the negative side of it is you don't know what all that does. And it's it's like fucking making 18-year-old kids pick their fucking life track. And kind of going to college. You idiots. This moron has no idea what they'll be good at or what they're best suited for or what they'll have an interest in as an adult. Yeah. It sucks that you're making them make these choices right now, these uninformed choices. And that's kind of how a game like that is, but there's also, that's kind of, it allows you freedom to fucking
that's how I felt until I got, until I leveled up a bit and got to replace swap skill. And I was oh, great.
Right.
Let me swap this other one out that I ain't even using at all, which I thought would be useful. And now it's not for this other
But
cool
you don't even have to, because you can develop, the gear will allow you to add things outside of maybe your class or race's native repertoire, so there is, it's not total, but there is a very sizable amount of customization that you can introduce to characters even after you've maybe tracked yourself a little bit somewhere, I had Tiefling Ranger. Todd's a Tiefling Ranger, and that lends itself to kind of dexterity and stealth and stuff too. But I have really, having thief capabilities in that game allow a lot of freedom. So I have really stacked those things, but with both gear and kind of ancillary skill choices to make him disposed towards stealth type things. So.
That's so fun. That's so funny. I love hearing that because it could be the opposite for me. I don't want a thief. I will be more powerful or, suave and diplomatic and like I will find a way. But like thieving, no, I couldn't. That's not me at all.
Well, that's because
or I'll destroy you.
Historically,
I like the variability in choices.
It's less of a sure. It's less of a thing now, of course, as games get more complex. But historically, thieves they're useless in these older games in particular. 816.
It's like, does that work? Like, what does the thief really
never.
do?
Yeah, like the thief in fucking that Dungeons and Dragons Warriors of the Eternal Sun game I love on Genesis so much is fucking useless. So like it's like you can't, none of the shit, they can't do any of the shit that you want a thief to be able to do just because the systems aren't present for them, This game has the systems though. So like thief shit, you can do some dirty ass fucking conniving shit and no one will know. And that's the thing you want a thief to be capable of, to pull some shit and have no one find out, and that's really interesting, so.
No, I get it. It's just not my jam, baby. Not my jam. Like even ESO, I will say ESO has some great like Thieves Guild quest line, like whole areas. And like I knew people in the guild who loved it. And they were like, I tried to get into it, like because, why not? It's a game. I'm trying all the stuff in the game.
Played it for 15 years. Why not
try
it?
Exactly. Of course, I'm going to try this stuff. But I was just like, this is a cool area. But like this whole sneaking around, I'm like, I'm good. I'd rather just go kill stuff.
Skyrim, I
but
understand. Elder Scrolls is not exactly the same thing, but it's close enough. Like I like the Thieves Guild storyline in Skyrim a lot, but like the actual functionality of thieving shit in that, it's first person, it's tough, man. That's they need even there, and we're talking that's 2011, when did that come out? Whatever. So I guess that is almost 15 years ago, so that's a long time ago. But yeah, they didn't have it figured out for Skyrim. So bad comparison. Okay, word. Like I said, I'm excited to hear your journey through that because it's there's just no way to have a replicable there's no way for you to have the same experience basically too. So it'll be interesting to hear kind of a piecemealed out track and how things go for you, because I'm sure there'll be road signs, or what do you call that, road posts, like what do you call that?
Just like quest marker, signposts.
Whatever. There'll be things along the way that
you'll be able to talk about. That should be common.
That'll be in common, but there'll be so many things connecting those that are completely off the fucking beaten path of my guy's deal, that it'll be interesting to hear how those kind of intersect.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Okay.
Can't wait to keep playing that. And then most of the other games I've started to dip my toe in a couple other games as well, since these are all the games that I've played outside of the Baldur's Gate 3 with Courtney are all just pick up and play anytime games. They're not really quest type of games. So dipping my toes in a couple, but I will save those for next time when I have more to report. But just glad I'm able to start gaming a little bit more.
Fair. So I mixed it up a little bit since the last episode too. I certainly played the shit out of Asgard's Wrath 2, nearly a daily occurrence, and I am back to and beyond my pre-save shit show debacle situation. And cooking right along. I got the third character now, which was basically just right after where I fucked up my game last time. And she's got it's like this wood elf that they all have a whole new weapon set. Hers is a bow, and she's got a shield too. I don't really fuck with them. They're kind of.
Wait a minute, hold on. Is this your third? Is this like the third character in your group, or is this like your third?
No, you switch between them. Yeah, no, you switch. You. Okay. Yeah, these games, your character is a god, and you possess these humans.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, so you possess these mortals in each one of the they're kind of like just a chapter, and you possess a certain mortal. You can use the different mortals once you've kind of gone through areas. There's all this like hidden shit to do with the other mortals in each thing that give replayability to each stage or quest.
Like the Lego games. Gotcha.
Possibly. So yeah, hers is it's a bow, and then she's got this projectile grenade thing that you can just throw it and blow shit up. Standalone, but you can also use it as like a shoot it or throw it and shoot it thing for more damaging attacks, and that's a really, really cool mechanic that none of the other two characters didn't have. So that's a fun thing. And each time, this happened with the second character too, who was more of she had this harp that is kind of it's a projectile weapon, but it's like a one handheld thing, and the motion for it is kind of like this. You're just like flicking attacks, as opposed to a more traditional bow thing. So, but with each one of these, you have like this. Yeah, you first get the character and you're like, it's harder because you don't know how to use these weapons yet, So you go through this learning curve phase where you're kind of frustrated and shit. And I absolutely did that when I first got this character. I was like, this character fucking sucks. And then like, you play it for a while and you learn the nuances. And you're like, oh, this is fucking great, So yeah. I've gotten past that initial stage with her and cooking along. And her saga, her chapter is in this lava zone, this like really crazy ass lava wasteland deal. So it's a really cool environment too, so that's pretty fun. And I got the last companion character. There's 5 of those. The last one's a boar. I got that. His puzzle function is eating these. There's like all these grub hub things, like these little fucking, I don't know, these little mounds that these grubs bury out of, and they like, you can see their faces. They fucking smile at you and shit as you walk by. But he eats these things, and like his whole like vibe is he's like this happy fat man glutton type character, and he eats these grubs and then can regurgitate them to change things in the environment. They can like muck up automated roadblocks and clean the ooze off things to make them interactable, and he's unlocks these environmental things, and that's his deal, is like regurgitating this vomit shit onto them. So that's pretty fun, I guess.
Yeah, that sounded disgusting, sir.
Yeah,
disgusting.
Yeah, for sure. So playing plenty of that, but I also did some other shit too. So Power Wash Sim VR dropped it dropped some DLC. So for six bonus things, jobs, I guess they call them, and that was totally free, so that was pretty cool that they didn't charge for it. But yeah, it's like a Mars satellite dish. There's a few vehicles, like a food truck and a backhoe, like a excavator, and a paintball arena. I think there's one more I can't recall, but so I've been playing that a little bit.
Come on,
Amy and I have jumped in. We'll play that's a perfect like the counter to Baldur's Gate, just like 15-20 minutes before bed kind of thing. Or some of them are bigger than that, actually. But whatever the case, just jump in and do a contained thing. And it's incredible. I've already told you, like, that's such a soothing, cathartic game to play. So, also I have a little bit left of my career mode on there, too. So I've been tidying those jobs up also. Trying to finish that. And then, we got back into Baldur's Gate. And then, yes, behind me, I don't know, I just got, like... It's funny, like, I was just tirelessly playing the shit out of Asgard's Wrath, because I had to get back to where I was. Like, I couldn't live with existing in a place where I was behind, where I lost that save. So I was just nothing but that for fucking weeks. And once I got to, like, the new area, which should have just excited me, and, like, all I want to do is play that now because it's new, it, like... I don't know. I felt, I don't know. It was just like exhaustion or what, just whatever the case. I was just like, oh God, I need to take a break from this. I've just played too much of it for the past few weeks. So I started to fuck with some other things. And then I remembered I had Pixel Rip 95 still unbeaten. So I'd fired that up, and a couple of 2 or 3 PlayStations maybe in the last few days. I posted a few vids of it, but I beat it. And
nice.
I don't know. It's such a cool... It's such a good job of, like, capturing a vibe, man. It's like, I talked a whole bunch about 1978 and how they captured the Atari game experiences and stuff. And, like, that's easier because it's simpler. Like, 95 is Super Nintendo is what they're going for here. And there's some Genesis stuff, too, I guess. But it's a more varied gaming landscape. So there's more to the games, and... the idea of capturing the feel of one of them is a little more complex. And they did it's primarily, this was the first one, 1978 was the sequel, basically. And there's also 1989 DLC for this one that I probably will have to get. But it's that first game was essentially the one designer. I've talked about that. I listened to an interview with her the one time. I think it was Rough Talk, but she I don't know. She did such a good job of just like there was towards the end there was this one of the situations was you go to an arcade. They're doing an arcade game, a fighting arcade game contest, right? And this is set mid-90s, so it's like a kind of Streets of Rage is very much what they were going for with the experience. And it's like a tournament deal where like your main adversary kid is one of the kids in the four. It's like four of you, and you're going for a high score on a 4-player machine. And, the two on the end drop off after certain levels, and it's just you and your adversary kid last two playing this, and you're playing co-op, but you're competing for points. So it's just like the AI was a little dumb for him, and I was able to kind of just trounce him. But you have that going on. I've told you about this game is so predicated on that dual environmental mechanic where you're playing the video game in the game, and then you have some sort of environmental shit going on. Well, in this case, other arcade machines that kids are playing at are getting possessed by that cyber lord, Cyberlin, whatever it is, the main evil dude, and he scares them off the machine, so they run away, and you have to take your little Nerf gun and shoot the machines and the shit coming out of them while you're still dealing with what's happening in the video game. So that's the game of this. And then the final boss battle of this, after you win, all the arcade games get cleared out, and this the character behind me, Dot, gets put out in the arcade space, and you are put in it looks like a Street Fighter 2 battle.
I was about to say there had to be a fighter tournament.
Right. And it's like this big boss and your character, and you're doing Street Fighter shit, but they also behind it put the really it's like a crowd of people, and it's though it's only a few frames of animation, and they're just in a loop, but it's a whole crowd of them, and they're flat sprites that are just doing something, and it's just it perfectly I immediately was Street Fighter 2. It is
nice.
Exactly the vibe, including down to those fucking audience, those people watching, and it just so perfectly captured it. And, and it's not, there's nothing licensed there. They don't use any of the same imagery. Yeah, exactly. They don't use any of the same imagery. It's just a vibe. And she is able to capture it so well. And there's a bunch of those genres captured in this one game, and when you see it, you feel it immediately, and it's just so good. One of the NPC helper characters was a Castlevania character. I think I might have talked about that ever so long ago when I started, and he's like a Trevor Belmont knockoff, and he's super dumb as fuck, and it just there was a bunch of Castlevania type shit when you first meet him. It's just all just capturing the vibe so well in that game. Such a fucking good job of that. And at the very end, the final thing, you get a PlayStation. It's a PlayStation knockoff, but it's a PlayStation. It's clearly identifiable as a PlayStation for Christmas. And when you turn it on and you start playing the game in the game, I could not believe how perfectly it felt like PS1, dude. I don't know how to explain it. I hated the PS1 for this reason, because it was so bad. It was I don't know, when the...
I was about to say, I did not own a PS1.
Yeah, Jab had one. I didn't care for it. I was a 64. But I don't know. I don't know. Again, I don't know how to.
But I know what the game's like.
It's when the camera moves, you can see the fucking the textures
the
vibrating.
And
just it fucking nailed that, dude. It looked just like PS1, and the character moved with that super stilted, shitty. You turn your character and the whole thing it's a slow fucking. I don't know. It just perfectly felt like PS1, and I couldn't believe how well she nailed that in the game, again, amongst a range of other similar accomplishments. So there's just so much TLC in it, and it's really fun game to play. And yeah, I highly, highly recommend those. And the last thing I have is last night, Amy and I convinced Amy to jump in and try. Finally, I bought it and tried the Meow Wolf walkabout course.
Oh, yeah.
It is. I mean, I would expect it to be bananas. It is fucking bananas, though. It is absolutely crazy as fuck. There's a lot of characters in it, which
Like walking around and stuff? Like just
yeah,
doing
kind of like the Labyrinth course.
Yeah, okay.
If you can recall playing that. Okay. And honestly, a lot of the models kind of felt like they were starter packs for these characters. I'm saying a lot of the character models in Labyrinth were like the starter for a lot of these characters. I could feel a lot of connective tissue with just, I mean, maybe that's just the way their fucking polygon situation works. Maybe that's why I feel that way. But I got a lot of Labyrinth vibes out of it. And that's, Labyrinth is obviously just a crazy ass environment too. So that's maybe part of it as well. But this is way crazier than Labyrinth. Like way crazier. Part of it's the colors and shit because it's like this really vibrant neon thing. But just way busier, way more shit going on. And a lot. Which is the worst possible situation for finding balls too. So that was frustrating. I got 12 of the 18 on the first one, which is pretty low for me. So, and like, there are some situations where I am just like searching tirelessly, and I'm like, there's no fucking ball here, man. There ain't no way. And like, they kind of, and I've wanted them to do this because I felt it was too formulaic, but they've kind of like, some of what I have decided are rules with the ball hiding are gone in this one. Like some of they don't really, it doesn't have to adhere to physics. Which makes sense. Again, maybe that's just for this course. I don't know. But like they can be like stuck on something, like hanging from, and that's not how usually it's always been. Like they have to like be able to physically rest via gravity on whatever they've been on, Yeah. So that obviously changes where you have to. You can't just be
sitting on the ceiling. Like
right. So yeah, it makes it harder for sure, which is probably good. But the course also, the front, like I thought. Yeah, the front nine was hard as fuck, and I thought, I was like, Jesus, like, part of it, so I hadn't played in a while, so like, man, am I ultra terrible now? Like, what the hell is going on? Yeah, the front nine was pretty rough. I ended up finishing a 2 under, because the back nine was a lot more palatable, but the front nine was difficult, and I was having some real getting my groove back struggles at the top of it, but it's fun. We should definitely jump in and try it. It'll blow your fucking mind. It's a cool ass course.
Nice.
There was one hole that was like, well, I don't even want to spoil it. There was one hole that like, fucking, so it wasn't even it wasn't even putt anymore. It was like,
oh man, one of those.
Yeah, it was like there's a few super goofy mechanics, but there was one that was way off the wall that, yeah, it didn't even feel like putt. It totally changed, and it should for what it was. They did a great job of feeling like what it was supposed to feel like, but it was not putt.
Okay.
Which is tough to just jump in and out of as you're putt-putting. Made for a difficult deal, but very fun course and very wild for sure. Good job. I'm so glad that I had been to Meow first because it made it make sense to me to some degree. Like I think as being like cold on Meow Wolf, it's gonna be even more like holy shit, this is a lot.
What is happening here?
Yeah, because it is definitely a lot, but it's cool. It's cool. It's worth the $3.99 for sure. There's no question. I've never felt like Walkabout's jipping you. The value is always there.
That, of course, is the Ultimate Warrior theme. Of course, from WWF WrestleMania Challenge, bringing us in. Tell me he is not your favorite wrestler of all time. Tell me he's not the greatest wrestler of all time, Josh.
The greatest, or you say my favorite or the greatest?
The greatest. Or your favorite. Either one. Which fits.
I liked him a lot. He's not my favorite. Razor Ramon. And actually, that game, once we get to it, Big Boss Man, I realized is someone I really liked as well as a kid, and I hadn't thought about him in a very long time.
That guy. That's what I say to Big Boss. F that guy.
Yeah. Well, this is the January 1991 issue of GamePro, and is a $3.95 US, $4.95 Canadian, $2.50 UK cover price, and it is a sportsball blowout. Joe Cool is on the cover with some kind of really funky 90s extreme color filter laid over what was probably a live-action photo, I would guess, originally. And I feel like we've talked about Joe Montana a lot lately, man.
We have, yeah. We were playing it, for sure.
So, I don't just me. I mean the human being, not even just the game, but the game too. Either way,
because of that, yeah,
right, yeah. I think it's safe to say Sega's $1.7 million signing bonus for him was money well spent. Yeah. When I interviewed Al, which if you haven't listened to that Order of Erdrick episode, that interview just dropped, you should. It was a pretty good interview, but he was pretty adamant that getting Joe was the defining moment for. He called it educating the public and the industry that Sega was like a real player for the 16-bit era. He was like, that's why they were so like, it was almost like a blank check. They were willing to pay whatever they had to because they felt like they had to, like it was their responsibility to, and he kept using that word, educate people that Sega was like here to party. You know what I mean? So it was, a lot of money, but I think it worked because it's everywhere.
I can see that point of view.
Yeah, this motherfucker is everywhere. Yeah, especially after that was. I mean, that was such a good interview because I learned there's so much shit in there that we've talked so much about Tonka handling that 8-bit era and how much of a shit show it's been on the marketing front, and I kind of expected that they went away entirely when he came in when the Sega shit started and that new team came in, and no. Tonka kept the marketing rights to the Master System well into like 92, I think he said. So
that makes sense. Man.
Oh, it makes total sense too because they basically were acting independent of each other. He's like, other than getting their mailing list, he's like, because I asked him what he thought about those newsletters, those first 7 newsletters that Tonka handled, and he's like, he didn't say a fucking word about the content. He was like, I loved their mailing list. He didn't have shit to say about what was in them. He was just like, I love that they had a mailing list, and that was our first audience for marketing the Genesis, that we had that defined thing available to us, especially in a pre-internet era where it was so much harder to get a list of human beings that were interested in a certain thing, So, yeah, great interview. Really interesting, fun shit. Annual Superstar Sports issue is the lead headline, and it is exactly that. They fucking can't get off sports shit in this issue. Everything is sports themed. And football is the first sub. Joe Montana and John Madden, NES Play Action Football. And I saw this when I first fucking looked at the issue. I'm like, Jay, what if they drop a huge bomb on us about the passing game and how to like be better at it in this feature was what I was thinking, and how salty you would be about that. So and logically, for the times, and probably still today, I would say, basketball is the second bullet point here. Lakers versus Celtics, arch rivals in your face, and Ultimate Basketball. And lastly, and tons more, we got roller games, Ski or Die, I was jazzed about that, and WrestleMania Challenge, Jack Nicklaus Turbo Golf, Wayne Gretzky Hockey, and the Pro Classic is touted as being the esteemed Tecmo Bowl. And the second I saw that Pro Classic mentioned, Jay, I started thinking, it like planted a seed in me, that perhaps we should be doing the 2 early NES football titles back to back right here around Super Bowl time. And get down to brass tacks of which one of these is the better game before we get into the Tecmo Super Bowl shit that's coming down the line. So, just want you to know that seed was planted here right on the cover. Fair warned.
I mean, we clearly played Joe Montana. We clearly played John Madden, Play Action Football. I mean, looking like this type of issue, and EGM did the same thing, made it, especially when going through it now, and I know like reading these kind of things as a kid did the same thing, made it apparent like which were the better games in that genre and which were
they don't fuck around. The ratings in here are it's an interesting. The review, I don't know. I don't know what the word to say is, but like there's some ratings in here that I was like, were wild to me.
Well, that is absolutely true. I mean, visually looking at it, like Lakers versus Celtics, arch rivals, Ultimate Basketball. I'm like, oh, I clearly know how I feel about those.
Yeah. Agreed. For sure. Yes, it's. I'm not saying necessarily what I read in here was different than my pre-existing thoughts.
Yeah.
Just as far as like the hierarchy of them, But the actual brass tacks numbers were wild to me.
Yeah.
So it was interesting in that regard, I guess. But yes, it is funny how it's all these games are not necessarily that fun to play now because they're so far removed from what you need a sports game to be today. But the analysis of them, I find, I don't know, like these sports games are so interesting to talk about and so interesting to read about in this context or the context of these times, you know. The sports games are one of my favorite things about going through these back issues is how they felt about them then, you know, is interesting to hear. And that's the cool thing about an issue like this. The first marketing inside comes at us, as it always does, from Taito. It's a couple of NES full pagers. They want us to reclaim your brain with your favorite puzzler, Puzznick. And then slap us with that dungeon magic joint with the boa constrictor, which we've seen a million times. Next is a two-banger for the Atari Lynx, and I like this headline. The following scenes may be too graphic for adults, and that's referencing the fact they have a screenshot from each of their launch lineup games, or at least the ones they've been pumping up in the mags here. And these screenshots do look damn good, especially if you're rocking with a fucking Game Boy in your hands going through this mag, which I certainly would have been.
Are you kidding me? If I can play in color Rampage, you got Clax, which we know is good now, and like other games. Clearly, I love Miss Pac-Man. Yep. I know Paperboy because that's an NES game, so I'm already like, oh, I can play that on the go, and you know, I'm
in color. You can play it on the go on the Game Boy, but it doesn't look like that.
Exactly, man. I still. At this point in the timeline, I'm still thinking like, oh man, Lynx is going to be big. Like Lynx, Atari's hanging on.
Do you know anything about the multiplayer capabilities? Looking at this and really parsing it, I started doing some digging. This thing can do up to 8-player multi. Is that not like mind shattering?
I didn't know it was 8. That's freaking man.
It's fucking nuts. So I looked it up. It's called like the actual device that you link with. It's called the Comlinks, and they of course took the opportunity to spell that Lynx. Not Link S. And it's a really interesting design. So it you fucking chain these things together. It has like the device, the Lynx has an input connection and then an input connection and an output connection. So the device itself, the Comlinks, is one input and then it splits into two outputs. So you can basically you plug it into one, like the lead unit, and then that obviously goes to the second one. But the second one takes that in and then also goes out to the next one, you know? So, it's fucking... You don't even need the machine. The unit goes into the next one and also has an out that just keeps it going down the line. Then it just goes to each one. It goes into the input. So it's just, I don't know, fucking blew my mind. I expected it to be like a hub. When I saw that word, thinking. I thought it would be like a little network unit hub that everyone just plugged into, which seems to make a lot more sense. Probably would have been more expensive, I guess, for the individual maybe. So maybe it was a marketing choice, but from a technology perspective.
This is 1990, dude.
Right.
That's ahead of the times for any attempt at such thing, you know?
Yeah. Oh, no, very much so. Yeah. So, the whole library, they only got the 71 titles total. So, that's part of why that system didn't work. Or, I don't know, it's chicken or the egg kind of thing, which caused the system not working. So no games, so the system doesn't work. I don't know. But it only had one 8-player game in the entire library. And most of them are 2 or 4, if multi at all. So they didn't really utilize this thing. But the one is one of my favorite game title names ever that I think it's on TurboGrafx too, so I want to give it a play eventually. But it's Todd's Adventures in Slime World. And
oh, man,
I support todding around, so that's cool. But yeah, it's like it seems to be like looking through, I was trying to dig up this information. It seems to be remembered quite fondly. Like it's a game that people playing multi on together on the Lynx who actually had one of those fucking things remember that game really fondly. And the multi component of it was one of the reasons why. So that's cool.
Man, continuing to see stuff like this, which appears technologically ahead, strong. Again, you drop me in right now, this thing should work, but it is what it is.
I'm sure it worked. Like I said, I think it's library limited and it just doesn't. It's the same reason, I was talking to someone on the Facebook page, but it's the reason Nintendo won everything at this time. It was all third-party support, which, they did the work to create the marketing and market share domination to warrant that third-party support. So it's not like it's unjustified, but that's why the Game Boy destroyed everything. Game Gear and Lynx included, is because they just had a million fucking good games coming out on it because they had everyone making games for it.
Yeah, I mean, plus you also had the best first-party games. Like
Sure.
If you don't have Mario, then I don't know what to do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you're fucked. Yeah. The TOC is next, looking more and more presentable as we radicalize our way into 1991 here. There is mention of another, I guess, issue 17 of the first installment comic pullout here, and it's that lame Culture Brain concoction, The Flying Warriors from the Light Dimension. And that's actually in the scan that I got off Archive, so if you want to fucking read this comic, you have the option. It's in the show notes.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's in the show notes.
It was so long. I didn't even know.
So,
I'm like, what is this?
Terrible. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I knew it was there because the first thing I think I've said before, but when I'm first making the outline for these, I have to go through and figure out like how many pages are in segment 1, how many pages are in segment 2. So I have to go through the whole magazine real quick. And yeah, when I get to the middle, like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is? Oh, it's a pullout thing. Like, what the fuck? Are all these pages about nothing. Yeah, so I knew it was coming.
Long comic.
Yeah, so when I got to it, I had already like had the experience and just flipped right through it. I it didn't bum me out as I was going through the issue, I guess is what I'm getting at here, because I knew it was there. But yeah, so if you hit it cold, I can see how that would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's no effort made to illustrate the backgrounds in it. Like the panels, it's all action moments, so they can just put streaks of colored light behind them, you know?
Right.
You know, so
it seems empty and sparse. And
right, exactly.
Like,
so yeah, really bad there. And then the text dialogue, or the dialogue text rather, looks like it was formatted in a very old text parser computer program, and it doesn't really fit in the bubbles right. It's like weird spacing and like the font doesn't work for the size of the bubble. It's just like it's just so bad. It's the worst comic I think I've ever seen.
That helped me understand that it was an ad and not just a comic. You know, I was like, this.
Well, is it though? It's not. They don't have a flying. They don't have a Flying Warriors game for cult. Did they? Or do they do?
They absolutely do. Are you kidding me? I had to go download it and I realized why. I realized why I had to go download it. But
yeah, I was thinking it was just like a Culture Brain brand ad, maybe.
No, because it says like available for your NES. So I was like, all right, clearly, like I gotta play this freaking game.
Yeah, the characters are boring looking. Like those two. The two fucking, I don't know, bad guys are like identical, blank ass colored slates. You know, they're just, it's so bad.
You fought us once. You displayed effort. Now you may move on. Like, oh my gosh, stop.
Awful. Our first Mega Man 3 full pager is next. At least as far as I can recall. You know, we have a couple of features, but I don't think it's the first time I've seen an ad for it.
That box, are you kidding me? Look at that box art, man. We've upgraded. We're big time box
art. The box art is much better than the previous ones. I agree. And yeah, the ad in general, I would say, is much in the same vein of that commercial we featured a few eps back, and it's just very like, here's Mega Man, need I say more kind of thing, you know? Mm-hmm. Like it reads Mega Man 3. Anything else you need to know?
Like nope, heading to the store.
Yep, I'm in Toys R Us already. Don't worry about it. They spoil the fact, even here, dude, they spoil the fact that there's bosses from both the first and second games in their pitch blurb. So we talk shit about Nintendo doing that, and I guess we really can't talk shit about Nintendo doing that if Capcom's doing it in the ads for the game. So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's like possibly a few enemies. At least it says possibly. So it's like, oh, could it be some Mega Man 1?
Yeah,
some Mega Man 1? Because
you gotta be an awfully dumb kid to not read through the lines. Read between the lines there.
I don't know. Because at that point, I started with Mega Man 2, and that was great. And then 3. So, I don't know. It's kind of, it would become kind of like the Street Fighter mystery where you're playing Street Fighter 2, like, oh, what was Street Fighter 1? Like, that's how I felt about Mega Man. Like, at this point, it's like, oh, Mega Man 1. I wonder, maybe So it didn't feel as negative.
I don't know what it is exactly, I suppose. and honestly, reading it, and I got into on the socials about this too, like, I didn't realize that there was anything from 1. It's cooler that there is stuff from both games, but I couldn't remember, or I didn't know what it was. I think that not Rockman, that's what they call Mega Man in Japan. I forget what it's called. The big yellow thing, I think, is in 3, and that's in 1, in Wily's Castle. So I think that is the callback to 1 in it, because there's none of those robot bosses are there. I don't think. It's just 2 bosses.
Yeah.
But that was interesting because all I was aware of was the Mega Man
It's a
2.
tease. It's a tease that would get young Jerry excited.
That's all we need to
Mission
know.
accomplished. Yeah.
That acclaimed two-banger for Swords and Serpents. After that, then a new two-banger for the Immortals. The ad box is what's behind me right now on the NES that looks fucking lit. The first page has big, intense headlines with screenshots that are, I think, good choices for the screenshots. And that was actually another thing about the Al Nilsson interview, dude, that I thought of while looking at this. He talked very intently about how much effort went into choosing those screenshots on the back of the boxes. And the cool thing was he said 3. And to me, that was interesting that it was like this industry standard, like he, 30 years later, it's 3. We got 3 on the back of the box. And then I guess the juxtaposition of that is when a game made the effort to do more, how much bigger of a deal that was. And how much of a creative choice it was, when we see more than 3 on the back of a box. And I'm not saying he said that. That's my interpretation. Yeah. But it was cool to me that he very specifically said 3 and how adamant he was about how important those were. He'd say he's like that's what I tasked the product managers with. He's like, I wanted each picture to represent a bullet point. And I wanted 3 bullet points as well of why this was the best game that you had to have, and that was the job I gave the product managers for each video game release.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was cool insight into kind of the marketing, idea for.
That's kind of a fun. I think that's kind of a fun job. All right, let me scan this game. What's Dude, clearly we got
because you have to play the game to know that. So you're sitting around playing the game. It's like talking to those counselors about fucking how much of the job was just sitting there playing the games. And for the counselors, actually, it sounded like kind of a bummer that they had not as much of that as you would want, And honestly, that was one of the flip sides that was cool too, was how they talked about developing the skill of being able to talk about one video game fluently on the phone and play a different video game in their hands, and that dual track mindset. That's something they had to develop if they wanted to actually be able to play games while they worked, So that was a cool story. Anyhow, the headlines read, "The Quick, the Dead, the Immortal." And after a solid pitch blurb, there is some fine print at the bottom that's even more fun. It reads, "Wits and speed required. Squeamish types and people with heart conditions should proceed with caution." So they're going the extra mile with the legalese, supposedly at the bottom even, is stylized to this intense-ass ad. And the second page features one of the most badass boxes for an NES game I've ever seen. It's a very realistic illustration of just the wizard's face looking out at us from a black void, dramatically lit from the top down, shadows in the eyes and all that. So, really good ad for a game. It's intense. I don't know. People keep talking about it like they love it, man, even on the NES. And I'm like, I don't understand. It seems fucking terrible.
Yeah,
to
what
play.
are we talking about?
So, yeah, I don't know. I think we just got to give it a better shot and really get into it. It must be something there to have so much affinity for it. The letter from the GamePros is a call to action this month. They are looking for a few good GamePros, 250 to be exact, to join what they're terming the GamePro team. And if you are a member of this team, you will get mailers a few times a year requesting that you rate games in their rating system. And in exchange for this free slave labor, you will receive GamePro swag. You get a hat, t-shirt, a certificate, and discount coupons for GamePro merch. So, still cool as a kid, probably, but nothing really cool there for giving them research data.
Right. I was thinking about it, as a kid, it'd be cool to be rating games, but the give.
They're not even providing the games.
I don't know.
Providing the games. You should get a game or something. There should be some real tangible shit there.
You're just providing me with advertising.
Right.
What is this, man?
You're trying to dupe me into additional slave labor. With your compensation for your initial slave labor. Yeah. So to sign up for the shit, you have to mail in personal deets, what systems you own, genre preferences, gaming tenure, top 10 games of all time, and then a pitch paragraph for yourself. I love the idea of kids sitting there trying to concoct why they're a good fit. It's a good exercise that would be fun to watch as a fly on the wall. Mm-hmm. Next, we have a Punisher ad from LJN next, and this is fucking intense. This is the art you have behind you. That's the box art behind you? Is that? Yeah?
Yeah.
So, the ad here is a brick wall covered in graffiti saying shit like machine guns, rocket launchers, M16s, big dicks. He who lives wins. So yeah, it's like very, I don't know. Yeah, even Punisher, he's standing there in the foreground with just his big dick held point.
Two guns,
skyward.
Course,
Yeah,
two giant guns.
Yeah, it is just fucking maximum 80s shit. And this dropped back in November. So it's a fair game for Game App shit, and I'd never even heard of it, dude. So I fired it up. I fired it up totally blind. It's LJN, so that's not the best
awesome company.
Yeah, nothing but licensed awesomeness out of them. So and honestly too, dude, you fire it up, and this is the first time they've done this. LJN comes at you fucking hard with like the logo is like huge. As like the first thing you see after the legalese. So I was like, oh, these fucking cunts. Yeah,
they're like, we're proud of this.
Yeah,
so will you. Man.
Right. But it goes from that to some dope ass fucking pixel art of the Punisher shooting his big guns at us at our POV from the shadows. And then it starts with the Punisher logo coming up from the bottom, and that becomes his logo on his T as he like materializes in the void. And the title theme is Dark and Brooding 2. So fucking good start to the presentation. And dude, this is a fucking Operation Wolf shooter, dude. I didn't know. I can't believe I didn't
about it.
I can't even believe I didn't know it existed. It's fucking great. This is a great game.
I can't believe I wrote down, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is kind of fun.
This is fucking great, dude. I played all the way through the first level, like, wanting to play more. Dude, it's everything. You have the frustration, sure, of the crosshairs deal with your D-pad kind of thing that you get with Operation Woof Woof anytime, and or any game like that. And they even play on it. There's times where they will pop an enemy up on one side of the screen, drag you all the way over there, and then immediately drop one on the extreme other side. Yep. And you got to make business decisions, and just take the damage or waste time getting over there. So yeah, they totally try to exploit your frustration of that mechanic, but I think it all feels good enough to warrant to kind of gloss that over. And yeah, man, it's fucking the pickup's cool. They're fucking. I like those rolled up newspapers are fun that you get the little tips from. You shoot them and then they pop up in the HUD at the bottom and give you a little tip about the game. It does suck trying to every time I would get one, I would think I gotta pause if I want to be able to read that shit. I'm doing shit.
Exactly. No, keep going. Keep it moving.
So that was a little annoying, but I kind of feel like it's the right kind of carrot dangling, I think, of just diverting your attention and making it hectic as it's supposed to be while you're in a gunfight. So it all played into the vibe that it's supposed to have, I think. Yeah, dude, I just could not fucking believe how much I enjoyed it and how much I would be down with playing it again, Man,
Punisher coming in hot with some unexpected fun. I was, coming, looking at this. This was... Okay, this wasn't the first game I played, but the first game of this episode that I played. I think
it might have been the first one I played.
Yeah, that I either had never played before or hadn't played since being a kid. And I'm just I'm shocked, man. I went from looking at this all right, it's going to be a sports issue that I've played all the stuff in to immediately.
I told you there's some new shit. There's some new shit in here, dude. I got there's a handful of games I'd never played that I would be absolutely down to play, and I fucking love that about this podcast, that it just forces shit in your face that just you didn't even know existed, let alone ever bothered with, so fucking cool.
Yep.
So good job, LJN. Every now and again, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. The mail starts off with write-ins about the rating system, and the very first one from Brad in Port Union in Newfoundland, which I didn't even know.
I know. I was like, what is NF? I was like, new.
It's a rapper. I'm using a lot of his songs for my hype videos. That's what I know NF as. I don't know. But this gave me a little tickle. He mentioned that he had to take some time and effort to memorize what the faces and colors mean, so we didn't have to keep turning back in the mag to see what they stood for. And I 100% had to do this for the first few issues that they started doing these. So I was like, I feel you. I see you and I feel you, Brad. That's absolutely what I had to do as well. So
100%.
Yeah, that was fun. And then Gilberto Diaz in East Orange, New Jersey suggests they should list a top 20 for each system based on the ratings. kind of like the Nintendo top 30, and I concur. That would be a cool idea. We enjoy those and enjoy talking about them. So perhaps that will occur. The next one is from your boy and fellow Ohio alumnus, Michael D. Michael D. Serve, rather, and he is in Kettering, Ohio, and he also shares an eagerness for what he's calling the Nintendo SFX and Super Mario Brothers 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not only is he your brethren in locale, he's also your brethren in SNES hype. I actually hadn't heard it called the SFX yet. I didn't know that was
Yeah, there were some, SFX, Super Famicom, like they were all kind of like code names before we knew what it was going to be. I love that. See, that's what I'm talking about. I was in the Michael D. Serve camp. I was like, oh, what is this?
Yeah?
Were
you calling the consumer hotline like him? Like ringing their fucking phone off the hook and demanding information? Because I thought that was fucking great. That's what he was saying he was doing.
I was not. I was just excited for every bit of new Super Mario 4 information that you were going to give me. Wherever it was coming from, I'm going to eat it up and see what happens. And that's why I love the fact that Danny Jahandra was so freaking wrong on the SNES.
Yeah,
it'd be a flop. It's too expensive. I'm like, dude, get out of town.
Yeah, like it was like, oh, he's just like shitting on Mike's parade for what? But it's all. And I quote, he says the phrase, "This is my 2 cents on the long-awaited SFX."
Oh my
and yeah,
gosh.
he just goes off on a list of total fucking conjecture.
Right.
like totally asinine conjecture. So yeah, it was they did a good job. This is good editorial work here of putting these diametrically opposed deals here, and both of them are just kind of ludicrous. 'Cause yeah, I mean, going back to fucking Michael D here, he's calling the fucking hotline, the consumer hotline, and they're telling him that there's no plans to bring it to the U.S. So he is like fucking on pins and needles.
He is on tilt. Like, what's
about never getting this ever, And fucking GamePro's like, fucking chill out, homeboy. Like go get your panties in a bunch. It's coming no later than Christmas '91, and they even have an MSRP for him at $170 a pop.
Yeah.
So they're fucking.
I don't know where he was getting his information. I always understood like, all right, Japan gets the stuff first. We get it out. Like, I get that. Like, we're getting it. Like, I don't know, dude.
But I guess, I get, especially at the time when your information acquisition is difficult, that if you're going straight to the horse's mouth, and the horse's mouth is telling you, like, fuck off, it's not happening. I can see how you'd be like, yeah, but what the fuck?
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You're going to leave me out of the next edition of Mario?
Right, yeah. So I don't want to fault him for believing Nintendo. But
it's funny, I'd say.
Yeah, thankfully GamePro chills him out, so that's good. Yeah, fucking Danny. He's like his like the bullet points on his asinine arguments. Like he highlights that the Konix has their multi-system in Europe, which if you remember, that was like the system that never comes out. That sounds horrific, So he's like citing that as his first thing, and then he's highly speculative math. He gives us. He's like, its price will be too much for your average video game fan, which is probably 60% of the NES users. He's just a fucking. He has no market research data.
Like, what?
Fucking. How could you how? Everyone knows this kid at the lunch table. That's what it is. You hear this, shut the fuck up, man. You're just you're making shit up. Everyone knows you're lying. Shut the fuck up. You're an asshole. Everyone knows you're an asshole. You sound like an asshole. You're an asshole. Shut up.
You're coming with the different take, the contrarian take. Like, we know what it is. Just
yeah. Get some data or fuck the fuck off, dude. Yeah. And then, so the worst part of it all, lists all this bullshit off. And then at the end, he hedges his snide bullshit with, then again, the SFX might rock the video game scene as its predecessor, the NES, it did. Who knows? Like, what a fuckface. Like, that is such a terrible, terrible way to end an already terrible letter. It is so fucking, such a... Yeah, pretty good.
I love it. It's just...
Yep. Yeah. And this is a heat-ass mail bag for sure. It just keeps coming here. John Combs in Cebus, Moore, Ohio, peeps, who he keeps hearing rumors that Tecmo Bowl 2 is coming out soon, and he wants the skinny on this very important matter, which I totally can understand. And Ed here, the editor, plays like a true showman. He shoots down Johnny Boy's hopes of a sequel by saying the bad news is Tecmo had started developing a sequel, but had scratched the project entirely. And then, after that dramatic pause that I'm sure Combs had while reading this reply, Ed goes on to say that the good news is said project was scratched in favor of starting a whole new game called Super Tecmo Bowl, an entirely new game that is planned for a spring release. And the really great part about this, if you're a true Tecmo Super Bowl head, is that even here in this first time I've heard it mentioned, Ed is fucking up the name. And it's like a huge thing.
It makes sense.
I do it myself, dude. I do it my fucking self. Even though I know I have read a million tweets from Tecmo Super Bowl heads, like they're just grinds their gears that people call it Super Tecmo Bowl.
It's Super Tecmo Bowl, right? Like Super everything.
Tecmo
Super
Bowl.
Nintendo, Super Mario World, Super Tecmo Bowl.
Yes? Right? Yeah, no? What you want to call it, right? Even though it's not on the Super Nintendo yet, so you can't use that. What do you call that? That fucking
that nomenclature. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not like that system doesn't exist yet. That becomes a system with the new system with the new console, but that's not a thing yet. Anyways, there is a way you can self-mediate yourself about this mistake is searing that abbreviation in your head, TSB, which is how you always see it abbreviated. And once you see that and can picture it, the abbreviation, if you think about the abbreviation of STB, it looks weird as fuck. So that's how I would suggest policing it in your own head if you also have this this affliction. That's how I keep myself from getting ridiculed in a community I very much want to be. I want to have good standing in the Tecmo Super Bowl community. And then we have yet another fun one to close it out. We have Jonathan Pallalogos, which is what a name, in Horsham, Pennsylvania. Also, what a name. And he is salty as fuck that the Pro Classic features keep being on NES games. And
man.
Yeah, he demands justice. He wants some rebalancing of the wealth in the form of SMS, Atari, Genesis, and T16 Pro Classics because, and I quote, "You must understand that fans of those systems play with them as much as Nintendo fans play with the NES, maybe even more." So, yeah, Ed calls it a good idea and assures Jonathan they'll work hard on doing more Pro Classics from other systems in the future, even though Jonathan's parents clearly didn't love him enough to get him an NES.
It's like, all right, 95% of American households have an NES. Okay,
right, yeah. Right. Just doing, the smart thing, but whatever you want, kid. And like, I love that this issue then goes on to have an NES game as the Pro Classic with Tecmo Bowl, so great. One of the best mailbags for GamePro yet to date. It's so much fun. From there, we get a handful of ads. Game Up alums Yonoid and Philios. We got Dick Tracy on the NES, and they all tried to distract us from making our way to the cutting edge. And this is all about telecommunication via gaming consoles, modems, and online gaming networks. And they start with Nintendo doing, and I hadn't thought of it until reading that letter from the editor, the letter from the GamePros thing. GamePro might have gotten that idea directly from printing a bunch about this Nintendo modem shit in this issue. Might have got. I think that it sounds like a very similar idea and system to me that Nintendo's doing here. But they start by saying that Nintendo is doing some development in the U.S., or rather on a U.S. network peripheral that plugs into that expansion slot in the bottom of the control deck that never ended up getting used.
That was interesting.
Yeah, I was interested to hear that they actually at least planned for something for it. And they're speculating that the MSRP for that will be $100. And they also mentioned that Fidelity Investments has been contracted to develop a stock market trading function for the platform. And we've seen this in Japan already. We've talked about it and how asinine it is. The idea that anyone's going to get an NES to do the stock trading, but whatever. I get like the novelty of it. Again, we're speaking from a known security risk.
Right? Like, are you kidding me right now?
Environment, Yeah. Back then, that wasn't a problem or thought of yet, so maybe there would be a lot less aversion than we're supposing, so maybe we should hedge that a little bit, that stance. But they also talk about a Genesis modem, they quote, being at 1200 BPS, half of the horsepower of my very first IBM PS1 desktop had on board, a 2400 BPS modem, and that an NEC one debuting for the PC Engine in Japan around the time of this issue actually coming out. So this one was fact. The Genesis one never came out, but the PC Engine one was coming out with a 1200 baud device as well. And despite being like a take my computer apart kid and like being totally into this stuff and knowing, I knew the different types of BPS, but I've never actually looked up what the hell that means. And I know it means bauds per second. I know what the sentence, but I don't know what the fuck a baud is. So I actually looked it up. It is the measure of number of changes to a signal per second, in this case, that propagate through a transmission medium. So it's just the number of times that a transmission medium can go between 1 and 0, per second. So it's like, obviously faster the better. Yeah, faster the better. And over when you're telecommunicating, the faster, the more information that can pass through that medium at a time. So that's why a 56K, which was the final, like, before it just became a hardwired Ethernet thing and stopped using phone lines. That's why that was so much better than 1200 or 2400 baud device. Which I remember, dude. By that 2400 baud fucking... You could run America Online on that computer. Like I said, a 386SX, 2 megabytes of RAM, just like a fucking disaster, even for when I was trying to use it in the mid to late 90s. But I remember trying to log on to America Online, and it would take an eon to like, because I'd be using those, 100 free hours. I wasn't even subscribing. Yeah. I was using those 100 free hours. Yeah, right. Yeah. So fucking, I'm trying to like in my bedroom, like get on the internet in 1995. And it's just like, it was just like, just so fucking slow. Yeah, so slow between the computer being dog shit and then also this like pathetic connection speed.
That's why dude, the idea that they're even talking about this of Nintendo or any of these companies like trying to get gaming online to happen at this point just blows my mind. Like it freaking blows my mind. Like especially knowing that it would take it is very cool that it was being talked about. And it kind of makes sense, that even though it would take it until like the Xbox and Halo for people to just be like, this is the greatest thing. And now, now it's everywhere. Right. But like the fact that they were talking about it back then, like I didn't know that. Like I had no idea. Yeah, I definitely did not know that. That's freaking cool.
For sure. Yeah, they in the Pro News report, there's more about this, and they get into what's going on in Japan, and we'll talk about that later. And that's what I'm talking about. The GamePro thing kind of mirrors. Very interesting, and the capability is fucking wild. And like it didn't. I guess they didn't have the verdict on like user experience yet when they're talking about, but it's live. It is a thing at this time already. So it was working enough to actually exist at this time in January 91. And that is so interesting to hear, I mean, the simple fact that it never makes its way to the US probably suggests that the end result, user experience wise, was not great.
Subpar.
Because it didn't catch on. But it also, there's just a whole.
I mean, you didn't have those technology speeds. Like, you didn't have.
The speed, but also just the cost of having a network back then had to be insane. And
and everybody had to have it too. So
right. To support it, for that to be a net benefit. So yeah, I'm sure there was just a lot of technology impediments to making it work as a in practice, but in concept, fucking amazing. Yeah. I mean, I was, I don't know. Did you ever? I don't know if you've talked about this or not. Did you ever fuck around with any of the like BBS stuff? Did you ever like fuck around with BBSs? It was like precursor to internet, kind of like local bulletin board systems that were kind of like websites or online.
Websites. Yeah.
Talk to people.
That's what I was going to say. Through this article, shout out to CompuServe. They mentioned CompuServe. Like that's where I got started. My brother was working there,
right?
So like I would play on his computer. I would go to CompuServe with him. So like all those.
I never used CompuServe. I maybe should look up a video of that because I'm curious to hear. I understand, and that's what America Online was too. It was basically a bridge between these BBS, these like text-based DOS BBS platforms, and what became the internet as we know it. And I think they were the intermediary between those two things. So I'm curious, knowing CompuServe is kind of like an early leader to America Online. I'm wondering how much more rudimentary it was. I get used both, right? I used America Online.
Yeah.
How was it? Yeah. Was it more archaic?
I mean, it definitely
feeling than America Online. I would guess yes.
Yeah, I mean, America Online always seemed like I loved getting on CompuServe and being able to go and like, oh, now that I'm on here, World Wide Web, I can go to NBA.com or Nintendo.com and like I can see those pictures and whatever. But like, yeah, being able to using America Online was different. Like we could chat like live, not just like, bulletin
Send
board
email.
chat
Right,
room.
right, yeah,
not
yeah,
just a chat room. Like
Yep.
this is just me and people. You know, like that was so much cooler.
God,
so.
yeah, dude.
It was a whole different thing.
I remember the fucking going into some of those chat rooms and shit. Wild that you could do that, dude. Wild.
Right, just people just randomly talking about whatever, like
anything. Insane, man. It's fucking, and like I can't, you know, yes, there all those things exist in my like Discord and shit. Is that, but it's different. It's somehow different.
Yeah,
It's just somehow
exactly.
different, and I don't know how. I can't explain how, but it's different. I guess maybe the total anonymity of it, and you know, I mean, I get that exists too via some of those. I'm actually researching a project. I found some. There's like a I forget what it's. I can't think of what it's called now, but it's like a. Oh, it's 4chan. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm researching 4chan. I've never fucked with it at all. I'm researching 4chan a little bit for this film idea I have, and 4chan is nuts, dude. 4chan is insane. Like it is. You don't even need to have an account. You could just post anything at any time, and it is this, actually. I guess
it's like that.
I guess what I'm saying is no one. It's not as mainstream or accessible to use. Like, dude, looking at 4chan is like, it's like Discord times a million as far as like, I hate Discord and like it's just so busy and like, I don't know, it gives me a fucking anxiety attack just to look at, let alone use and interact with. Like 4chan is that on steroids, dude. It's like fucking insane. And there's just shit, people posted pictures and it's just fucking crazy, dude. It is nuts. 4chan is fucking nuts.
No thanks.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Like I said, only even, again, it's just a work thing. There's some cool ass like mystery stories and shit that have happened via 4chan that are super fucking dark and interesting, that are good film seed ideas. Okay. You know, that have me kind of looking through it and seeing how I could use the website in a film form. You know, it's kind of interesting, but just using the website for casual, I can't imagine wanting to do that. Anyways, a new full pager from SNK for future side quest candidate Crystallis on NES is next. We haven't seen this before. They're offering a free strategy guide you can cop by clipping and mailing in the form in the ad. And I couldn't find this strategy guide on archive.org, sadly, or anywhere else. But that would dramatically up its side quest potential, I think, if we had like a full strategy guide for that. So hopefully that will turn up somewhere. I did, Googling around, find that Crystallis has a section on Mike's RPG Center. So at least there's that in the event that we have to, or we do side quest Crystallis. But yeah, it's cool too. It's a fun illustration. It's presented as an unfinished puzzle, like jigsaw puzzle. And there's some copy below defining puzzle as is to baffle and disturb mentally, to confuse, confound, bewilder, and befuddle you, you know, which is cool to selling the idea of like, even though this is an action looking game, it is a cerebral experience, and that's a good marketing choice, I think. I'm
looking at this and saying this is going to be a puzzle game that's going to frustrate me. Great.
Yeah. As a kid, probably, yeah. Different vibes on a game like this back then. I've gathered. We've all gathered. We then start getting sporty with a gauntlet of pro segments, Overseas Prospects, Hot of the Arcades, and Pro Classics. And Overseas is looking at a full season simulation-focused baseball title from Hudson Soft for the PC Engine, Power League 3. Then we have arcade titles in Hot at the Arcades. We have Bally Midway's Pigskin and Atari's Pit Fighter.
Ooh, yeah, Pit Fighter!
So this, I got to read this. So the most professional sports are just a step away from being legal mayhem. Take football and boxing, for example. If you take away the rules and penalties, the sophisticated strategies, what do you get? Nah, not the New England Patriots and Buster Douglas trainers. You probably end up with something like Pigskin and Pit Fighter, this month's coin ops. And I don't get what the Patriots reference means there. Like, why did they choose that team specifically? Like the Patriots were dog shit in 1990-91. They were 1-15 in, I think, both years, actually. So I don't know why anyone would aspire towards being the Patriots or talk about. I just don't get why they're citing the Patriots, you know.
Who
doesn't
knows?
Make any sense.
Maybe it's the writers' like favorite team, and that's the only way they're getting airplay at that time. Maybe. You know. So,
holy shit! Oh no, this is GamePro. Never mind. That's we haven't talked about that. So Al, one of the things we got to the bottom of talking to Al, the whole idea of it's not a problem for us using the magazines in the way that GamePro's publisher IDG taking it over in 92 is, but they didn't do those mags in-house. They hired a marketing company to do all the issues prior to IDG taking over in 92. So it wasn't in-house. I mean, it's still Sega directed. Like, they would tell them what games they wanted featured, but they didn't make any of the content internally. It was all done by this Boston base, which is what I thought I connected to there. That New England Patriots Boston. Yeah. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, they did it all. They hired a marketing firm in Boston that did all these early issues of Sega Visions, which kind of floored me. I did not expect to hear that because there's no sign of that anywhere on the internet that they had
that's nuts.
A different publisher. Anyhow, Pigskin is a rugby game set in 621 AD, so it's like rugby, but in caveman
medieval
times.
Rugby.
Yeah, like with
something.
Vikings and stuff. So kind of interesting, I guess. Maybe it might be fun. And Pit Fighter is a proto-Mortal Kombat fighter that uses digitized video capture for the animations. And I had to YouTube it to see like kind of what's what. And
wait a minute, Josh. I can't. I'm gonna stop you right there. When you say you had to YouTube it to see what's what, are you gonna tell me? Are you sitting here telling me, after all these years that we've known each other, that you did not play Pit Fighter?
Never played Pit Fighter
as a kid.
No. It's Atari. I'm sure it was all over your radar being Atari. But,
I mean, it was all over the arcades. I mean, just being at the arcades, that because it looked so real. You know, the way that the photography is and their digitized images, like it just. It's the realest thing we had before Mortal Kombat, and it's at the arcade. So it was always this like, oh, this is like $1. Everything else is a quarter. This is $1. Like, oh my gosh, really? Oh,
yeah. Like I said, I didn't do a lot of time in arcades. I've said that a million times.
That's true.
Yeah. I'd never seen it. It's pretty fucking bad. It like
it's
maybe not as
it's iconic though.
It's not as far from Mortal Kombat as I kind of expected it to be, maybe, but it looked pretty bad. Like.
Oh, it plays nothing like Mortal Kombat. It's only like Mortal Kombat visually, and the fact that there's blood.
But even the visually, there's like fewer frames of animation. You know, like those motorcycles look like he's picking up a cardboard cutout of a motorcycle and throwing a cardboard cutout of a motorcycle at the other character.
But still, graphically, this was still amazing at the time. Still graphically amazing, if choppy and
right.
Early.
Well, that was. The fact that you could pick stuff up, like functionally was interesting, and that it was not just fighting. There was like environmental interactivity and stuff. It was kind of cool.
Spent many dollars on this game. That's what I'm saying. Like it's rare to see the hot at the arcades at this point in the timeline and see something that's like, oh yeah. But this was definitely that for me.
Yeah, I can't even think of ever seeing the arcade game once. And I'm sure. It's been in arcades. It's just because of no connection to it. You just walk right by. There's so many arcades you do.
Yeah, especially now. But like if you saw it then, you were like, that looks real. What is this game? Yeah.
If I mean, 1991. I probably had a little bit of Aladdin's Castle exposure in 1991. That'd been right after I moved back in with fucking my dad and intern Jab. So, we might have got to go to like Midway Mall and spend a little bit of time in Aladdin's Castle here and there, but it would have been limited time. So I was probably playing Rampage the whole time because Rampage was such a thing to me to see in the arcades. Yeah. And they also, I mean, I don't know if the Simpsons one was yet, but like X-Men, I probably was playing X-Men, shit like that. So like you're not
dropping $1 on this one, even though it looks great. Like unless you really,
especially fighting. Yeah. I don't have a Genesis yet, so I have literally zero exposure to fighting games. So I have they're intimidating. I don't know how to play them. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. You got to know combos and shit. Like I just fighting games in arcades just never were an approachable thing to me.
I get it.
Pro Classics is, as the cover promised, a two-banger for Tecmo Bowl on the NES, and they start by saying that the game recently smoked all competition in a GamePro Reader sports game survey, and named titles that didn't come close, supposedly, are Punch-Out!, Blades of Steel, and Double Dribble, and I, of course, think this is blasphemy, that Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Doesn't come close to this game, but that's what happens when you give the idiot masses democracy. This is what happens when you give idiot masses democracy. Tecmo Bowl's good, but it ain't fucking Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Come on. Let's get fucking real here, Jay. They go into that survey more later, and we'll talk about that in more depth. Thankfully, they have Pro Shots is basically that list this month. So they have a ton of journalistic bedshittings in here. Beyond that as well, they cite that you can clearly discern the sprites for all 11 players on a team, but there's actually only 9 per team in this game. So that was one inaccuracy I noted. And they mentioned that time haphazardly flies in the game, which is correct.
It does fly. Yes,
but they inaccurately state that there's no timeouts allotted. So I guess fucking this dude's never looked at the fucking menu. It like pops up on the play screen, but you do get 3 per half, just like in a normal football game. And then I thought, funny enough, like very disconnectedly, right after that blurb, there's a pro tip telling you to take your time on an offense, that the clock doesn't start running until after the play starts. So like basically they directly contradict the idea that the play clock
what are we talking about?
Just cruises. So it's talking out of both sides of your mouth bullshit. So that's not the best basis by which journalistically to be forming opinions if they clearly didn't fully get the experience, I think. But whatever the case, the power meter goes 3 graphics, 3 sound, 5 gameplay, 5 fun factor, 4 challenge, and 80% cume. And I can vibe with all that, but Mike Tyson's Punch-Out would have higher numbers on particularly graphics. Definitely challenge.
And definitely
challenge is a 5.5. It's fucking beating Mike Tyson's like the hardest thing in the fucking system. So get the fuck out of here. And also, I think sound. Halfway.
No, sound is good, man. You have like some
I'm not saying to make these lower. I'm saying Mike Tyson's Punch-Out though.
Mike Tyson's Punch-Out has some sound. I think it's definitely at least a 4, at least.
Right. Yeah, the music is incredible. Yeah, and
like the iconic biking sound. Like at my most conservative, I'm giving it a 4.
Yeah, I mean, what am I saying? Actually, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is 5s across the board. It's 100%. What am I saying? Even there's no debating anything. It's a 5, which has yet to get. Maybe that'll get a Sports Pro Class or a Pro Classics eventually, because we have yet to see a GamePro scoring breakdown of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I would be very curious to see that. There hasn't been. It's so early too. There isn't a power meter for it either. I don't think so. I don't think we've seen that graded by one of these magazines. So that would, I'm sure, send me into a tailspin, because I'm sure it wouldn't be perfect.
Of course not.
The MSRP is listed at $44.95 still, so Tecmo ain't scared that it's been out for nearly 2 years, since February '89. They're still putting that shit at the top NES kind of price bracket. So, yeah, that opens the door and reminds us that it exists, and perhaps allows it to fit its way into our discussion later this episode. Acclaim has worked a $10 mail-in rebate form into their Double Dragon 2 on NES full pager, and that's dropped in before Tecmo, and opens the door for you to, pitch me on this game up here in a few minutes, actually, because we keep seeing this. Acclaim also tacks on the Total Recall ad here, which we've also seen a bunch. That great shot from the movie of fucking Arnie fucking yell that you can hear. It's one of the few ads in any of these magazines that you can hear, which is fucking great. Yeah. A cool new thing comes next, an index of the entire 1990 GamePro printing run, and this is cool. This is from a historical perspective. It's a cool feature to add to one of these magazines. It's an alphabetized list of every hardware and software product featured throughout the entire year, and it's paired with what month issue and the page number in that issue. And there's also a parenthetical of what kind of feature it's, whether it's a Pro View, a Pro Shop, Pro Classic, Cutting Edge, whatever the case. So very cool and very clever way to sell back issues for sure also, but genuinely helpful, I think, for subscribers as well. So
for sure.
Yeah,
cool. I thought it was a great listing. I mean, obviously we've seen them all, but like I actually scanned through it. Like, all right, is there anything that I need to revisit?
Right,
going through here.
Super helpful cool. if you're a total nerd about this stuff. It's a great tool to have in your toolbox. And then Todd's back in the Adventures of GamePro after that, and a bunch of Game Boy ads. It's Chapter 16 titled Thriller, featuring the NES title Rhyming Chiller. So a lot of ingenuity put into that title, and he's in a graveyard dealing with zombies after a highly expositional interlude with Zardoff, and this is really all just set up for the next installment, where we are teased that Todd is going moonwalking, and at the end of the end panel has him falling at the feet and of someone, and all we see is like their shoe and the pant leg, and it's clearly MJ. Even with that,
clearly Michael Jackson.
Yeah, even with that limited, the pants are high water, which I guess is a very telling attribute.
Oh, for sure. The socks are sparkling, like it's clearly Michael Jackson.
Yeah. So between the moonwalking thing and the image, no question that we're getting Moonwalker next. So that's a good job, I suppose.
Nobody has high water pants that sparkle and glisten except for him.
the Ultimate Basketball game theme from the NES version of that game, bringing us into the middle portion of GamePro 18. And we open here with the SMS Hot Fire Library 2-banger that Tonka's been pumping out recently in an attempt to desperately fan the flames of Sega's 8-bit offerings, while the Genesis runs amok on their user base. And a lot of this is either awful or vastly inferior to the Genesis version already out.
For sure.
But the handful I plugged into our game app options list were Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, Psycho Fox, Rambo 3, and Double Dragon. And for some reason, Jay, that I cannot fucking explain, I fired up Double Dragon for a refresher. And dude, this Double Dragon, it is so much better than the NES game. So much better. And it just looks and feels so much closer to the arcade version of the game than the NES one is capable of accomplishing, probably, but definitely whether it actually does or not. It's almost immeasurable, dude. And like the NES game feels to me like a standalone NES game, like so many others by comparison to so many side-scrolling deals, almost like they built it from scratch. And it just so happens to mostly mirror the story of the arcade game. You know what I mean? As far as like the flow of the game, like it's not Double Dragon. It's just like kind of a Double Dragon, like in the world of Double Dragon. This feels like the arcade game, you know. And obviously, it also has the co-op feature too, which is critical to enjoying Double Dragon, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. No further words needed as long as the co-op's there. I think as far as whether the quality's better and it's worth playing. But yeah, I mean, I played all the way through the first level. And I kind of wanted to play the second level, I think, after I finished it. So
that's shocking.
I don't know. Yeah, I think maybe I want to do a game episode on this. Is what I was like. I think turning back the clock for a Master System game might be in our discussion later.
I mean, I don't believe in aliens and stuff, but like, who are you and what did you do with my friend Josh? Like, I usually call him Folan, so like, I don't know who you are. That's shocking. That's shocking to hear you say it. Like, I clearly love Double Dragon 2, Double Dragon 3. Like, I played Double Dragon 2 sometime in the last 3 years. I just played all the way through it. Like, I love those games. Like, Double Dragon 1 is clearly the worst of them. Like, the other ones are, add more to it, which are fun.
I think on the NES, that's the thing. On the NES, I think you're thinking of NES games, and you're right.
Well, yeah. No, I get it. Trust me, as the kid who had to play the Atari version and looked up to, I was looking up to the NES version, right? Yeah. But I understand, looking back and understand the whole landscape now. Like, I understand NES had, like, their first-party games, Mario, Zelda, those drove everything. And, like, the other games that came along later were great, different genres, like your Star Tropics, your RPGs and stuff were great. But, like, some of these ports were just, trash. They were not, like, there was a reason that arcade quality was 100 and Nintendo quality was always, like, subpar in some respect. And clearly, the Genesis did a way better job of getting close to arcade quality. So it does. I am not surprised. And I'm surprised you liked it, but I'm not surprised for you to say that.
Okay. Yeah, and Sega, that's the thing, is Sega is an arcade company still, at this time. Exactly. I mean,
so that makes sense.
The idea that they would do a better job of emulating an arcade game is probably perfectly logical. But yeah, it's I really enjoyed it. And like the thing I enjoyed about it, I think the most, because like the fighting had nuance, and maybe it's just different and a lack of familiarity with it relative to the NES version. But I felt like there was more variance to whether or not I could kick the fuck out of someone, and that in turn made it more interesting. The thing I hate about these kinds of games, beat 'em ups, in most cases, is it's just a rinse and repeat activity. You're just doing the exact same flowchart to interact with each enemy over and over and over and over again. That's what I hate.
That's why games like this and River City Ransom are good, because there really is variability. Like you can punch, you can kick, you can throw, you can flip, you can, like this one, I definitely cannot fight this enemy the same way because he's taller. So like I kind of have to come at him from either above or behind.
The good ones, yes. That's why the good ones are good. But I'm saying why most of them aren't good is because
that's what I'm saying why I like Double Dragon. Like you just, maybe you just didn't get into it well, get to appreciate it.
Well, I'm saying that the NES port doesn't have that of the first game. I'm saying. I'm not suggesting.
No, I believe you.
I'm not suggesting Double Dragon 2 or 3 didn't have that.
Yeah,
I've already
they have
said,
a lot more. Yeah, that's
right.
what I'm saying. Yeah, for sure.
But that's what I'm saying is I think this Double
Even
Dragon
has
1 has more of that, and that was a pleasant discovery. Picking it back up. So yeah, that was, I don't know. Again, I don't have like, we've seen this ad a bunch of times. We've seen all the games in it before. I don't know why I looked at that and I was like, I'm going to play Double Dragon right now. I don't have an explanation for it.
I don't know, man. There's something, this is a good ad though. Like we've seen the regular ads like that they've always done, but something about the fire.
Sure, no.
Every time I see these
ad.
every time I see these white boxes, I have a deep nostalgic reaction for a system I never owned, but like that was like still popular around Nintendo, and these were hot games that were still popping off. So when I see them, I'm still like, oh, what were those games? You know, like I don't know. There's still that reaction.
I am equally intrigued, but it's for a completely different reason. It's fascination and a desire to find nuggets in a system that I knew nothing about and think so low of. Even from a modern perspective, going through these games, like that's one of my biggest disappointments about this podcast experience has been, I've said it before, but that, going into that 8-bit era, I expected to find a bunch of shit in the Master System that were those glorious discoveries like what we just talked about for Punisher. We're just like... these great games that I passed right by because I didn't know they existed back then, and I expected to find so many more of those in doing this, going through the 8-bit era for Sega, and it just has not happened as much as I would have hoped. So I am very excited whenever I do find one that the stalwart for this is Monster Boy 3. Like that game was just fucking so good, so
it was good,
yeah, whenever we can find one that is worth playing, it excites me because I want to have more of an affinity for this system, because again, I think it technologically superior in every way, so we just need the software. Again, like I just talked about earlier, the only reason it didn't work is because NES had all the fucking software. So when I find software for the better system, it's exciting, so this was an instance of that again. Even though I'm almost certain I've tried this before, but it felt kind of a new to me, which I guess is all that matters.
Yep.
Then it is back to the cover feature for some sports ball coverage, b-ball style, and they start with Lakers versus Celtics. Jay, they give this game a perfect score, 5s across the board, and that is fucking wild. And I know you have to look at it through the lens of January 1991, but... perfect? Get the fuck out! I don't know.
I think we're done with this magazine. I think we're
I mean, I love these games in the Genesis era, so like it's not like I'm like, oh fuck those games. Again, but especially perfect is about? Nuts.
What are we talking?
Nuts. About? It's not like I don't know. It's not like they're just handing out perfects, It's not like all they do is give perfects to fucking whatever. But like, there's a lot of that here. Like this guy specifically is doing a lot of these Genesis games, and which Fan Fanatic is his name, and the pen name, and there's another one too where he is just I think it might be Madden, or which also the great football game, so sure, but like he is just jazzed about these Genesis fucking sports titles, dude, which again, like I know they were at the time just like mind-blowing comparatively to
like we have actual NBA teams. Like look, we got logos,
right,
we got colors.
Jordan, you can play as Jordan and do 360 dunks with
what?
Jordan over motherfuckers' heads. Like yes, that's incredible, but perfect is
Genesis,
crazy. You got to have some more. I don't know. You got to have some more journalistic integrity than just handing out perfect. I don't know. Perfect is crazy. Yeah, perfect is crazy to me. So that was a lot to see when that's like the first thing I drew my eyes to is those meters and like holy shit, I'm perfect. Like wow.
You're like whoa. Did you agree? Did you agree with that perfect?
I do not agree with that perfect. No. Again, like I liked these games. I thought Lakers versus Celtics. It's the first one, so of course it's weaker than the latter installments. Too, so that's also wild to me. That's the first one, and you're giving this one a perfect. But again, I guess maybe it's just.
I do remember, it definitely. Who had it? Somebody I knew had it, and I just remember playing it and being like, "Oh my gosh, this game is freaking great!" Like I don't know if I would say 5s. Like it's hard for me to say anything is perfect, like 5 out of 5 everything. But that, like I do remember even at the time thinking this is a that is a solid freaking game. I want
Huge
to play
step
more
up.
of that. And obviously the later editions, I would absolutely.
And I guess maybe a factor that I'm not taking into account here is what I have just been screaming from the rooftops since we started this podcast is how dog shit every basketball game has been to date. You know, and this Lakers vs. Celtics was the first game that even came close to a real, true experience, an NBA experience in particular with license. And it's got the simulation components of like, you have to fucking substitute and like play lineups and swap motherfuckers out or they aren't as good. And like shit like that. It was all new here too. And
I will say, even compared to the games that we will talk about later that I have much more nostalgic affinity for, playing them now, I'm like, man, I get it. Like I could see, like I could be persuaded. Perfect, but I could see I could be persuaded.
Yeah. Dave, you talk about who had this game, like the late David Camargo I've spoken about he was my Genesis buddy, my inroad to the Genesis. He had it. He had everything, and he had the Genesis super early, so he was the reason almost certainly that I bought one and wanted one. And I remember he had this game for sure, and I'm sure I don't remember the experience of playing it for the first time, but I'm sure it was flooring to say the least. Yeah. So yeah, Fan Fanatic just goes wild for the game and the page plus of pros he put down on it, and then they have a little box talking about each of the 8 teams in the game, and these are the 8 that made the quarterfinals round in the 89-90 season.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, and yeah, it was fun reading. In particular, I guess it was fun reading all of them just because sports, but it was interesting and fun to read the perspective on the Bulls team at this time. Did you read this one? So it's just prior to the start of the three-peat, basically. And the way he describes it here is Jordan dragging them into the playoffs with no help at all. But some guy named Scottie Pippen had just finally emerged in these playoffs to give him a bit of help. And this is the 2 years that the Pistons won back-to-back, which the Pistons are what stood in Jordan's way, So it's just funny how perspectives of course change. To that, yep. Yeah, perspectives change obviously as time passes. So it was cool to read that here. The MSRP for this is a $49.95 sticker price, and it's for a 5-meg cart in this case. And yeah, I don't know, Jay, perfect score. That's
perfect score. I mean, if you're looking for like NBA basketball 5-on-5, like on a quality system with quality graphics and stuff, like I get it. Like at that point, like I can understand, especially when we compare.
I can't understand. There's no way you can convince me. I understand.
I'm not saying perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect. Good. Like you gotta drop something down. You gotta give it like a less of a challenge. You gotta drop it to 4. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it's 5 challenge, but
I think I'm trying to like. Because again, every time we've picked it back up these so far for the pod, like I have had a very difficult time because it's like you're not familiar with the controls and shit yet, and like you got to remember the nuances. This has a lot of like, because it's a slow plotting deal, and kind of like we talked about with NES Play Action, like it does that so you can use strategy, and like pump fakes are a thing in this game, and like the strategic component of basketball.
But even like to take that even step back a second, is a 5 challenge. Like, does that make it not challenge or the highest challenge? You know what I mean?
Is the highest challenge. Is that
the highest challenge?
Yeah, 5 is the highest possible.
I don't know if I'd say that. Well, I definitely would not say that then. It's not the highest challenge, especially when I think of other basketball big games we're about to talk about.
Well, I guess it's good challenge. It's not just like bullshit challenge, just because it's not, it doesn't just mean hard. It means like competitive and interestingly challenging. Not just like I can't beat, not just like Silver Surfer, I can't beat it. It's not right. That's not what it means. In my view, I guess.
Sit through a cut screen every time.
Yeah. The next basketball title is American Sammy's Ultimate Basketball, and this is just brutal. They praise it for pulling a lot of the good from Double Dribble and trying to add some simulation layers of merit. It gets 3 threes for all the tangibles, graphics, sound, gameplay, and a 4 and the intangibles, fun and challenge, or rather a 4 in fun and 5 in challenge, and 72% cum in total. So, I don't know. I think you got a little bit more love for this game than me, I think.
Yeah, dude, I played this a ton as a kid, and it's It's way like I liked it as a kid a lot more. I feel like, but it is way too easy to steal the ball, and that gets so frustrating, man. Like almost every pass is a steal, and I'm like, this is not fun. But like seeing the screens and like going through it and getting some shots and stuff, I'm like, okay, I definitely remember
Nostalgia heavy.
like, yep, renting this. This was definitely a rental, and like renting this maybe even a couple of times because it was like, all right, it's a basketball game.
I don't feel like I ever even heard of this back then.
Yeah, this was 100% a rental.
But I didn't get into basketball until like late grade school, probably. I didn't start, like, it was not, again, that like those Jordan versus Dominique.
Fully on basketball.
Those fourth grade Jordan versus Dominique are my formative basketball, Jordan Dominique arguments are my formative basketball affinity memories. So yeah, I was probably 10 or 11 before I even started like kind of paying attention. Even then it was just like I said, I think I was just aspiring to be part of the cool kid crowd. Not actually, I wasn't watching basketball really yet. I started watching it not long after. Like I have a very visceral memory of watching the 1992 All-Star game. Like the one where Magic came back and played and shit, you know.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Everybody was watching then.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
I can remember where I was, like the room I was sitting in watching that. So that's like
crazy.
one of my first basketball memories. So that's obviously much later than this. Especially on the child timeline. A full year is like a fucking eternity.
Right.
They want $49.95 for this 2 meg MMC3 chip enabled cart, which I don't know if you're keeping fucking track, but it's the same price as Lakers versus Celtics.
I mean, it's a different system, though. It's a different system, so it's
it's an older, shittier system. Tough sell in this game economy. That's what it is.
Right? But at least there are options like the next one we're about to talk about.
Yeah. Acclaim's Basket Brawler Arch Rivals is that next one. And the writer, fantastic fan again, he did all these reviews, and he rightfully warns us this is not like for anyone even vaguely interested in simulation of actual basketball. that is purely arcade fun, and I think that is apt to say. And he gives it all 3s except a 4 in gameplay, which is...
And that's harsh, man. I think that's harsh. It's
I agree.
Way more fun.
It cumes out to a 64. Yeah, it cumes out to a 64. I agree that fun factor should be higher, at least a 4, maybe a 5. And you know, MSRP is a more reasonable $44.95, even as a new game. I don't give any tech specs for it, but I'm sure it's in the same range as that 2 meg MMC3 enabled as far as the hardware goes. But yeah, this game is just the novelty of it is so much more fun, and it is a very. It was interesting to mention all the dumbing downs from the arcade game, which I have no familiarity with. So I think that's part of the kind of the.
I could see that
the jadedness towards it is it dumbs down, which that happened with most of the arcade.
It happens
ports.
with everything. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Yeah.
Everything of this era that goes to NES, it's not going to be the same. You understand that coming in. So if you're that is a downside though. Like you've played at the arcade and you're coming in like this is what I'm getting. You're going to be disappointed if that's your thought. I did not have that expectation, thankfully. Like I've seen it in arcades, but I knew what that was all about. When I first started playing this again, it didn't feel like it was going to hold up for me. I was like, oh, this feels like a lot earlier gen than I remember. Like it feels a lot more basic. And clearly I was a kid, obviously, but like it felt so great. Now looking at it, I'm like, man, this feels whack. Like this feels like an Atari type game, but the shooting still feels good, and I still had fun.
There's no way around, it's fun. It was such a perfect design decision to make that kind of like the super arcade style game. It would have been awful if it was 5-on-5. It would have been cluttered and awful. Yeah. It's like the funnest part of that game is running full court with your fist drawn back and just fucking slamming some dude in the head on the
trying to shoot it. I dare you to try to shoot it.
Yeah. It's they perfectly designed for what the game is supposed to be, I think. Yeah. It's a fun game.
He's underselling this fun for sure, man.
It'd be tough. I mean, it's one of those games that like 100% fun to play. I wouldn't want to sit and play it for a game map. I don't want to play it that much, but it's just to pop into casually every now and again and fuck with. It's still a fun game.
Exactly.
And then the other 2 are Game Boy joints, and that's not our bag here. But I didn't remember it at all. But seeing that NBA All-Star Challenge from LJ fucking in jarred some nostalgia for me that I thought worth mentioning. maybe Jab had it, or I don't remember where I would have been exposed to this, but seeing the screenshots, I was like, oh fuck yes, that game was fucking fun, dude. So it's got 27 NBA players in it, and a ton of superstars in there, of course, and it's got a bunch of game modes. It's like a kind of a mini game type thing, but it's also got a full on one-on-one mode with a tournament aspect to it that was really well done. And
I remember
you would expect. I would expect. You would expect in a game full of all those mini game bullshits for that part to kind of suffer. It didn't. Like that was the piece mentions it too, but that's its shining moment is the one-on-one aspect of it, which that's thankfully so. But the mini games are fun too. Horse and the 3-point challenge and shit. That shit was fun. The free throw thing, like that shit was all fun too. But yeah, this was a shockingly good game. I could remember how, again, just seeing a few screenshots, how fondly I remembered the game as a result of those.
Same.
It was cool.
Same. I think this was the era. I don't think I owned this game. I feel like this might have been the brief era where you could rent Game Boy games too. But you know what I mean? So I 100% played it. Like maybe, I guess there's off chance I found it like a flea market or a yard sale or something like that eventually. But yeah, I definitely remember those screenshots as well. I was like, oh, this is that game.
Yeah. That free throw, the one of the free throw behind.
Yeah, the free throw.
Oh,
yeah,
because
his arm is.
Yeah, because that art, it looks, by Game Boy standards, it looks so good. They look, the sprite work is so good, and the headshots of the players again just look so much. I can't believe how much, as an LJN game, how much effort went into it. It's really good.
You got to put some respect on LJN's name. Put some respect.
I guess
LJN.
Punisher. This. I've said before. I think Jaws and Friday the 13th are way better than they get credit for. So, we've always, it's a known fact that's AVGN mentality to overly shit on LJN, but
yeah,
sometimes it's warranted. Not in this case, though. Yeah, they give it a 76% Cume, which I think that is probably just about right. All fours except sound, so not bad. Your joint Jackie Chan's Kung Fu shit, and then also more J Fodder and Solstice. They get ads. Getting us over to football and coverage, and John Madden Football and the Genesis comes first, and again, Fantastic Fan is handling all these as well, and Homeboy just gushes about the simulation upgrades to previous football games we've seen. Audibles, passing system, defensive strategy, and how fucking great it all is, even though there's only 16 unlicensed teams, though player stats are still modeled after the actual NFL iteration, so who cares probably, ultimately. But I again, played it a bunch already. I keep forgetting that it only has 16 teams. I never remember that it doesn't have a full 30 teams.
Yeah.
In the era. Yeah, it gives 5s for graphics, gameplay, and fun. 4 in sound, 3 in challenge. And there's a pro tip that really supports that 3 in the challenge too. It reads, the computer almost always runs a halfback counter as its first play of the game. And it's like,
whoa. Yeah,
time to fire that OC with that caveman play calling bullshit. Like literally a fucking counter every time. So that's not good. But 88% Cume, he summates by exclaiming, helmets off to the folks at Electronic Arts for satisfying every football fan's dream. And that, funny enough, follows a gripe about a rulebook flaw he must have clocked in gameplay, being you apparently can advance a fumble in the game, and he states that is not permitted in the NFL, which, again, this motherfucker is wrong about. And it's a bit of a, this one's maybe more of a technicality. He's just not fully explained himself. But you can advance a fumble in the NFL. And even the rule was the same then, too, because this is a rule that came out of that Oakland fumble rule where they tried to fumble Ruski it into the fucking end zone for a touchdown and changed the entire rule book because of it. But the offense can advance a fumble. It's just got to be the player that fumbled it. Someone else on offense can't advance the fumble. And on defense, you can do it. It's fucking free for all. You can obviously pick it up and run it back. So that's a bad thing to be bitching about specifically, I think. But it's funny that, Madden trying to replicate simulation stuff like, things get lost in the fire, I'm sure. So it is funny that you probably can't. I'm sure any offensive player can't pick it up in this. In fact, I kind of have vague memories of that. Like the fumbling in early Maddens is like kind of. It's almost like it's not as bad as Tecmo, where it's like truly just like a nonsensical jumble mass.
Yeah, where's it go? Yeah,
right. But fucking, it is pretty fucking all over the place, So I can see just anyone picking it up and just fucking running that shit back, and it being frustrating. That is a $49.95 MSRP as well. Joe Montana for SMS follows that, which surprised me. I even had to I had written it already in the notes as the Genesis one.
Genesis?
Before I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is SMS. So it's interesting. I don't know why. He says it's not out yet. I think it just means they were doing it because it did come out for Genesis. It's out now. We talked about it already. So that's not right. It just must have when they were doing this piece, it wasn't out yet. So they were doing the SMS one, which is kind of fucked, I think. And it probably, honestly, I mean, I don't know. Sega was probably, I bet Al was still pissed because he was only doing Genesis, like I said. But Sega might not have been upset about it. But you would think Al would probably be pretty pissed that they were, because that was like, again, we talked about it at the top of this, like, this is the big get for them, Joe Montana. He wants Joe Montana flying front and center for the Genesis too. So he probably hated this particular feature not having the Genesis version of it. But whatever the case, he shits, Fanatic here shits on it being licensed schlock. Mostly that Montana didn't really have any hand in other than the play calling stuff that we talked about, kind of liking actually. But he does say it's an upgrade from Walter Payton football on SMS if you are still stuck on that system.
Oh my gosh.
64% Cume, $29.95 MSRP. And then we're moving into NES Play Action, and Fantastic Fan starts with a barb about the lengthy deployment and delayed release for this game that we've talked about a million times. So that's his first, how he opens it up, is some more shitting on that. And then he calls it a definitive upgrade over previous NES football games, Tecmo and John Elway specifically, which is interesting that he, I don't know. If you're really going to be, I think I never compare the two, basically, I guess is what I'm getting at here. Like, they're completely different experiences. One's an arcade experience, one's a simulation experience. They're great in their own way. I would never say one is better than the other in an overall sense. They're like completely, the only thing they have in common is it's supposedly football. You know what I mean? That's literally the only thing they have in common. So that's a tough thing to say, I think. John Elway, I hear, because that is just an awful game, but he bitches about the dumb computer AI that we griped about too. So I thought that was funny that he talks about players just running out of bounds and shit, which is one of the things I
like. What are we doing?
Yeah, I really hated. He did have one of the pro tips. Fucking, my vote goes out to you for Employee of the Month. One of the pro tips is the Ronnie Lott onside kick thing. So specifically Ronnie Lott, not just onside kicks. He specifically talks about Ronnie Lott fucking just taking that shit back. And he's like, I think the numbers he quoted was 33 to 50% of the time you're scoring a touchdown, which that sounds much closer than to the quarter of a time, maybe. And I don't think they were talking about touchdowns there. They were just saying recovering it. He's saying you were scoring a touchdown 33 to 50% of the time, which sounds more like my speed, maybe, of what I would quote with Ronnie Lott. So that's pretty cool. And made me very happy. Nice passage here that I think supports kind of our takes on this is it's in 4-player mode. This cart really cooks. As a solo contest, it's above average and definitely worth a look. We'll call it a strong playoff contender with stars at the skill positions that has some glaring weaknesses. So I like that analogy. And by the numbers, it gets 3 in the tangibles, graphics, sound, and gameplay, and then 4s in the other 2, fun and challenge. For a 68% Cume, it's a little lower than I think I would like to see, but you know, again, it's a different strokes for different folks thing. I understand that's not a game for everyone. So, and I think ultimately, even though we remember it fondly, I think we, even with our nostalgia, were a little disappointed. So maybe, you know.
Yeah, like playing all of these football games in the order that we have been playing them over the last couple episodes. I did not think that I would say, yeah, Madden is the best game. Madden's what I would play. You know, I did not expect that. In my mind, it's like NES Play Action football, and then, you know, this and that. But now I'm like, yeah, I mean, Madden is the game. Like, that's crazy. Yeah.
What we have here. Yeah, like, again, I think the Genesis version of Montana, it's close.
Clearly better. Yeah,
it's a dip. It's
SMS.
Well, yeah, clearly than SMS. But I just mean close enough to Madden that it warrants a conversation. I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we talked about. I think our specific was it's just like it doesn't look like it'll be as fun, but for some reason when you play it, it is. You know, whereas Madden is just kind of the known leader. So you know, obviously, but yeah, Montana's a lot closer than I think you would expect as far as the experience goes. Yeah. They quote the MSRP on NES Play Action at $39.95. 4 meg cart. Well, they're just coming out too. I'm surprised that's and it being Nintendo proprietary. I'm surprised it's not a little more. You know, especially as a 4 meg card. It's not even a 2. So MC3 too, so it's it's not like I don't know. Or actually, that might have been MMC4 because it had the diagonal thing. I think that was MMC3. Whatever the case, I would expect it to be a little higher. Following that, it is now time for Johnny Arcade's editorial contribution to the issue, weighing in from his Video Power TV show Throne, where he does journalism on the burgeoning roller skate-focused cottage industry. And here we have Konami's beat 'em up on wheels roller games and a traditional roller derby sports joint that never gets released, War on Wheels from Jalico. We fucked with roller games before. It's Konami, so it's by no means a disaster, but I didn't care for the on wheels part of a beat 'em up, which is what it is. And I think you kind of enjoyed it, I believe, yeah?
I kind of enjoyed it, but I kept falling in the manholes, so I just kind of put it aside.
Yeah, that was really, okay, grip. Like, fucking 20 manholes.
Like, it sucks. But this time, it's funny. Like, I made it so much farther this time. I fought mini bosses. I just kept going. Like, my boys were kind of watching me play, and like, I don't know. It was a lot more fun than I expected. Like, I just kind of, I don't know, maybe I was just more focused this time.
It's Konami,
Yeah.
They give it a fucking ridiculous 88% cum. So that's awfully fucking good. It's got fives and graphics, fun, and challenge. And
that's what I'm saying. Once I got used to it, man, I was impressed. You know what it was? One of those instances where I forgot what game we were playing. And I thought it was like, I was thinking roller derby. So I was like, oh, roller games. What is this? And then I turned it on and I was like, oh, it's this game again. But I just focused and just kept going and going. I was like, okay, I'm getting the hang of it. I'm liking it. Like this, I could see this being a game. There's definitely a game here. If I rented this as a kid, I'm like jamming and continuing to have fun now. I've gotten past like the stupid hump that was causing me an issue before.
Just the initial hurdle of it. Yeah, I mean, again, like fucking beat 'em ups, not my favorite thing. So like adding some sort of complication to that was not necessarily pleasant.
I don't know.
But again,
it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun doing the ramps and jumping in between those. I don't know why it is. Like landing those jumps is a fun thing to do.
It's funny. Like you say that, and it for some reason the first thing that pops in my head is Battletoads, which I love that game. So, that's a beat 'em up too. Obviously, it's just got better mechanics in my view. But maybe if I got past the hurdle, that I would enjoy that more. Because again, Konami, it's hard to believe that it's a true stinker being a Konami game. And Johnny Arcade, like I said here, sure thinks it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I definitely have revised my opinion. There's a game there.
Understood. The other one is straight up roller derby, as you might have, as you were thinking. This one was Jalico's Kart. Even though, like I said, it doesn't come out, but he must have had a prototype or what have you. He gives it a more modest, but still not bad, 76% for just a straight up roller derby game. I don't know, both of those numbers, like I feel like, because he's not doing these on a regular basis, he just gets like this one-off thing, and he's like probably doing that on his fucking lunch. Shooting the show, he's fucking not doing this shit with any real fucking like scrutinizing journalistic perspective or anything. So they're probably a little higher than maybe a more seasoned reviewer would give them. But, After that, we are dealt the Dragon Warrior 2 full-pager again, but there is an interesting addition to it this go-round. I posted this on the socials, got some fun banter going on with it. But it's a banner at the bottom is headline Dragon Warrior 3 pre-release contest. I'm listening. And it reads, defeat the diabolical Hargon, send victory comments, a hero's biography, and a photo of yourself next to the final screen to Enix America Corporation. 20 select players a month, which is not a small number, I would say, in the aggregate, will receive Dragon Warrior paraphernalia, whatever the fuck that means, with the chance to win a pre-release Dragon Warrior 3 pack. And yeah, I just fucking love this, dude. I love getting the idea or getting the game pre-release. That's dope as fuck, of course. But I really appreciate the entry requirements. Like the victory comments is a very fun thing. Like I beat the game. How much shit do I want to talk about that in written form? Right now, that's fun. And then also the hero's biography, and I think a Todd hero biography would have been fucking fantastic to write. So there's just a lot of fun stuff in there. I think that
I think this means Dragon Warrior 3 immediate side quest. Superseding everything.
It's not out yet, so we can't. Jay.
I know, I'm kidding.
But I think it's pretty likely that it'll happen. I just hope for your sake it's not before we get to Star Tropics, so you can shut the fuck up about Star Tropics.
Why so much hate for Star Tropics?
Not hate. Not hate.
It must
Not
be
hate. I
completed.
just don't want to hear that argument for every side quest conversation we have. I want to get it off our plate, so you have to come up with something new.
Fair enough.
Just as I'm sure you felt about my Phantasy Star 2 argument. I have a little doubt that this is a one-way street. Then we start hardcore pro viewing with more ultra action, Ski or Die, a snow sport minigame collection in the same vein as its skateboarding predecessor. And Jab had this. We fucking love this game as kids, so I am partial to it, even though I know Slasher Quan here gives it a dog shit 68% cum, and I think that's fucking bullshit. A 3 for fun factor is a video game journalism atrocity, in my view. Like, if you want to shit, I mean, it's also ultra, so probably hard to say the graphics are bad too. You know, it's Konami. It's not some of the like actual gameplay stuff is a little zoomed out and kind of not great, maybe.
I don't know, man.
But like some of the video store art or the stage selection art with fucking Rodney in snow gear and shit is fucking dope as fuck looking, and you know there's enough good looking things, and like that snowball game that is my favorite thing, and Slasher Quan's here fucking his biggest gripe. It's my favorite event in the game. Looks fantastic. That's a great visual, I think, you know. So did you played it?
Yeah, I got strong California Games vibes.
Yeah, sure.
Like, that's what
mini game thing.
Like,
yeah,
like playing the half pipe was very fun for me. Like I felt like I don't know, like I had a lot of fun doing that. This is
a great game.
I thought I would hate this game. Like I thought I don't know what I was thinking. I clearly was thinking about something completely different. And so I came into this with very low expectations and having fun. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like this is a game.
Did not see that one coming at all.
I didn't remember seeing this game anywhere else. It's so weird to me that Jab had it. We weren't like snow sports. Like we're not getting anywhere near a skiing fucking trip or anything in our household growing up. So I don't know where the fuck he would have gotten the inclination to get this game, but he did. And yeah, I just feel like I didn't see it anywhere. You see Skate or Die everywhere. Everyone had that game, you know, and like that's this fucking cat's Slasher Quan here's gripe is that it's just a reskinning of Skate or Die. But I mean, I would say like it's way shittier across the board in quality in every possible way. Skate or Die, like all those games are dog shit. And the one he bitches the most about losing, the pool joust, is awful. It's so awful. And like the idea that he's pissed that that's gone in favor of what I think is the best mini game, the snowball fight, like that's his biggest bitch, is crazy to me. So like, fuck this guy. This guy's an asshole.
Choose your argument. Is it not a reskinning? Should they have left it in and reskinned it to something else? What is it?
Right? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's actually a good point. Like you're bitching that they made some actual original changes, and that's when you're saying it's a reskin. That's a really good point. And even like, more.
Come on.
Yeah. Even undercuts the argument even more. But yeah, dude. Like that did you like the snowball one?
I didn't even play the snowball one.
Oh, dude, the snowball one is fucking great. It's like a tower defense type deal where you're on like a mountain or whatever, or a hill, and you got like a little radar, and you can turn like in quadrants. So you like turn all 4 cardinal directions, right? And you have a little radar, and you can see where the kids throwing snowballs at you are at, so you know where to turn, you know. Nice. And then it works like, honestly, and I know I've clearly already demonstrated that I'm partial to these, but it's a crosshair shooter, basically, where you move the crosshair and throw snowballs back at the kids. And it's well done. The kids have nice, fun, varied movement, and it's got that deal where a lot of these perspective shooters will do kind of I think a Terminator 2, where like the guy will sometimes pop up right in front of you, you know, out of nowhere, and your crosshairs
quickly.
Right, yeah. So it's got that going on, and it's so fucking fun. And yeah, I can't imagine hating that aspect of it out of all the events on here. The one I probably like the least is maybe that inner tube race where you're trying. It's a fun idea where you're trying to stab pop the guy's inner tube. It's a cool idea, but the actual mechanics of it are kind of bleh, I think, in general. But yeah, I don't know. It does mention, which is cool. I didn't remember this, but you can play up to 6 players at a time. I mean, it's passing the controller, of course, for these mini games. The only one where you play head to head is that inner tube one that I think is its weakest point. So it is just passing the controller, but it makes for a great party game. I think, which he mentioned specifically, is probably its best attribute. So I agree with that, even though I'd forgotten about it. But generally speaking, yeah, I mean, shitting on it, 68% is terrible.
So that's a bit
terrible
low,
perspective.
Bit low,
Terrible
bit low
perspective. Absolutely awful. Yeah, it makes me glad to hear that you enjoyed it. And maybe, I mean, I kind of expected, for some reason, I expected you to hate it. I don't know why, but I expected you wouldn't like it, so I'm surprised. And I even thought when I mentioned early on that you kind of got a shitty look on your face. So,
well, because like I don't know what I was thinking about. Yeah, because in my mind, it's something I would skip over. You know, like maybe I'm thinking of Skate or Die. Maybe I'm thinking of something else completely different.
Probably, I mean, Skate or Die is the obvious fucking.
Yeah.
If you haven't played this one, it's hard not to assume that it's just fucking.
But like I said,
snow.
Like to me, yeah, the music, the sound was good too.
That's Konami. Yeah,
the game's vibe. So I'm like, oh,
yeah, it's
like
Konami.
Never,
yeah, the music is bangers, man.
Winter games, I don't play these things, but there's, I mean, obviously, snowball fights are fun, so that's the one thing, of course. But yeah, it was fun.
Okay, maybe I don't think I even have that on my nominations, but hearing you were fond of it reinvigorates me. So maybe I'll add that impromptu to the discussion if you enjoyed it as well. Because yeah, I mean, I don't know, like it's just fun. It's just a fun fucking game to play. They want $44.95 for it, which is kind of the standard Konami sticker price, I think. And the makeup of that 68%, just to get into that, he gives graphic and sound a 4, so he's kind of giving Konami their due there, but 3 is the rest of the way, which is just, insane. That,
like
fun factor.
3s on gameplay?
Fun
and fun? Come on.
Challenge, I hear maybe challenge it's not the most challenging game, probably.
You got to give me a 4 for fun. Like, you got to give me at least a 4 for fun. 3?
Especially having the party aspect. You got to take in that account. I think that into account when you're talking about the fun factor is whether or not it's a party game, and this certainly is.
Like, if you're trying to spread your lower votes among games, this is not a game to give low votes to.
Yeah, just to hit quotas, just to hit a nice range. Yeah, this is not the one. Yeah, fuck Slasher Quan. He's on my shit list now. A full pager for Ultima 4 to remind us that's our next side quest if we ever start and or finish fucking Phantasy Star 2 before THQ's Wayne Gretzky hockey. And I never fucked with this, but I tend to like hockey games, so I was optimistic. I don't know about you. It does have a full NHL license. It's got 10 accurate teams, rosters. I wouldn't know. Hockey, who the fuck knows? Other than Wayne Gretzky, I guess. But it does lack a tournament or playoff mode, so you can only play one-offs, and that's fucking really shit. Especially not even a tournament mode. Like, I understand, like, this is pre-having seasons and stuff, whatever, and it's only got 10 teams anyway, so that'd be tough. But not having a tournament mode is, like, basic bitch-ass shit that I cannot believe it did not have.
Yeah.
The reviewer Brother Buzz says the playstyle leans heavily away from Blades of Steel arcade style and much more into real hockey simulation and strategy, and that's probably its selling point. Players who want that.
Yeah, it's not bad though. Like it wasn't. I don't know.
No, it wasn't bad. I hated the top-down view. Like
I don't like that either.
I didn't like the look of it. What it did is it made it feel more PC porty to me, and that's obviously a bad thing. You know, the menus and shit felt very PC-ish as well. That opening cinematic with Wayne Gretzky doing that slap shot looked dope. That was cool ass pixel art.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not the game I'm going to keep playing. Like, if I want to play hockey, I'm not going to pick this up again.
Definitely Blades of Steel over this. There's no question in my mind.
100%.
Yeah. Or the original ice hockey, also way better. In my
Both,
opinion.
Ice hockey, still better. That's my thing. Like, if you can't come close to ice hockey, let alone Blades of Steel, then we're just, there's nothing to talk about.
It's tough. I did like the opening title screen ditty, though.
It seemed like there was some promise at first, but then I got into the game and I actually restarted and played a second game. I was like, nah.
Like I said, the menu said the PC, and like I couldn't even. That was like a real bad red flag to me. Is like, I don't know. Did you struggle a moment to get the game going with the menus? Because like the input is not right. It's not right.
Yeah, 100%. That's why at the end of it, like when I started my first game, it was US versus US, and I couldn't even tell. I was like, what happened in the menu selection that I ended up.
Well, I couldn't even select what I wanted. It wasn't even a matter of like getting to the game. I couldn't get to the game.
That's what I didn't mean. Like no part of me wanted to play team versus team, so I was so confused. I couldn't understand what was going on. I had to start all over again.
It was fucking weird. You had to like hit B to move and start to select, and A went back or something. It was fucked. Yeah, it was fucked up.
I thought my inputs were wrong.
Yeah, right. They were, but only because it was programmed that way. Yeah, tough thing about it for sure. Interesting factoid. So, yeah, I fired this up, and I'm watching that title sequence, and I don't know if you clocked it or not, but the LED sign in the background, did you see this? Reads Bethesda Softworks. Did you see that?
I noticed that. I was like,
okay.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so yeah, me too. I'm like, Skyrim Bethesda? And yeah, that's my immediate thought. And a little research turns out that this is indeed Skyrim Bethesda, dude. So this is the 88 PC version of this, came out in 88, was their second ever developed title. And that was, the first one was some PC football title called Gridiron that came out in 86. So their gameography starts in 86, and this Wayne Gretzky Hockey is the number 2 game they ever made. So that was pretty cool and interesting.
I noticed that same thing. It immediately threw me off. Like, wait, what? Yeah. It kind of threw me on a tangent
and like
through work.
And like it's like the like it's kind of tough to read on that thing. So I was like, does it say Bethesda?
Yeah, I was like, Bethesda Softworks.
Yeah,
what?
so even as I'm Googling it, I was not entirely sure that I was even Googling the right thing. But sure enough, pretty cool. Acclaim's coming down off the top rope, brother, with an upgrade to WWF WrestleMania next, and they simply tack on Challenge to the end of the title, as they will tack on a handful of additional bells and whistles to make for a better game. And this time they have 8 wrestlers instead of 6. They have 8 moves per wrestler instead of 7. They add a tag team and Survivor Series 3-on-3 mode, and then players can do any of this shit in any combo. So you can 2 players against the computer as a tag team or a Survivor Series, or head-to-head with 2 different teams of your own, which is pretty cool. And they also added outside the ring action, which is a huge must.
Gotta have outside the ring
which is
action.
that's like probably the biggest thing that made the first WrestleMania suck so much, is because that's like at least half of what WWF wrestling is, So to not have that is awful. And the Rare's the developer here too, as they were the first one. So you got lit ass music, as we already had the Ultimate Warrior theme. All of them are here though for all the wrestlers, which is great. And the actual wrestlers they feature are the Hulkster, Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Ravishing Rick Rude, Big Boss Man, as I mentioned, a childhood favorite I kind of forgot about. Really? Really? Yeah. He was also in the arcade one, which I remember that very fondly, using him for the arcade version of this game.
That's why I always wanted to beat him in the arcade version. Okay. Like it's just because he's a cop from Stone Mountain, Georgia. He just like epitomized as like,
you remember
I'm
that?
the racist cop. Of course, man. I'm from
it.
Stone Mountain, Georgia. I'm like, fuck that cop.
I didn't remember that at all. I didn't remember that
he's
at
out
all.
to get me.
I didn't remember that at all. That's hilarious.
I'm from the inner city, Columbus. Like this cop is like.
So I honestly I can't remember shit about his build or like his whatever perceived backstory, other than just he was like a shit talky cop. So I didn't remember that at all. That's hilarious. Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Stuck in my brain. Yeah,
that's great. That's crazy.
Hey, I loved wrestling as a kid.
Kids are hilarious. The shit they latch onto is so good. Oh man. And then I'll say more. It's not all of them. You got Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who also is a fun character. And Andre the Giant, of course, he's not out yet. And then we have Macho Man Randy Savage. And the Ultimate Warrior, which is what the title screen art is. And it is very good. Pixel rendition art of the Ultimate Warrior. I think this is right around when I think the piece even mentions it, that he had just won the title when they were doing this. So
that was my favorite WrestleMania. We actually got to get that one on pay-per-view. My cousins came over to watch it. It was like one of the great highlight events of my childhood when it comes to TV watching.
I didn't even have cable, so to me it was just so far out of reach, but I can't even imagine how awesome it would have been to get WrestleMania.
I'm seeing my favorite wrestler defeat the world-famous Hulk Hogan like at WrestleMania. Oh, it was the greatest thing ever. Exciting.
Had to feel so epic. Honestly, my best WrestleMania moments in my memory are the trading cards. That's how little access I had to WrestleMania as like a thing to actually watch. You know, I didn't get the videotapes. I obviously didn't get the pay-per-views. I wanted to. I watched the shit on Saturday mornings and saw the shitty matches where they talked about these unattainable fucking matches, but or they probably even showed highlights to some degree. But the WrestleMania cards, which was in hindsight like really poor quality trading cards when I think about them, like very cheap looking, but I definitely collected them a little bit.
Dude, I'm pretty sure this WrestleMania was like, it was like a birthday present that I got pay-per-view or something. You know, it was definitely like a special, like, I did not get pay-per-view. Like, normally I was the same way. Like, I just get to hear about it the next week on the normal broadcast, you know. But this was like a special event. So, huge times. So, to see him in the game, playing this game right now, man, I wanted to like this game. I don't know if, like, I liked this game as a kid. I don't know how you feel about it.
I didn't even know it existed when we were kids. I didn't even know this game came out. Like, so
I just kept losing.
I'm pretty sure this is the one when we played the first game and talked about it extensively and posted a bunch of shit. I think this is the one where Matt Gould, this is the one he talked about, I think, saying he got and liked it a whole lot more. And because actually he mentioned the years that you can play. So when you pick your character in the tournament modes or anything, you have to play as yourself. You know, this generic 1, 2, 3 kid placeholder kind of wrestler, you know, and that is interesting. It's weird that you can't just be a wrestler. You know, that's a strange choice, I think.
Yeah.
Slasher. So go ahead.
Dude, no, I was just going to say these early gen wrestling games, it's funny because the more and more I think back and look back and we do these episodes, the more I realize that like the Super Nintendo was really like my system, my defining era, what I really liked the most. Like I had so much time in Atari wishing I had a Nintendo, but there was so much of that time that like when I had the Atari, Nintendo was happening, and then Super Nintendo happened, and I finally got my Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then it was like all Super Nintendo. Because like for me, as much as I like and I want to like this game, I'm realizing no, it's the Super Nintendo one, the one of the Super Nintendo ones that I'm really remembering now, because you could do the finishing moves and stuff that I really liked, and I was like, "Oh, you got 4 buttons, A, B, X, Y. Now you can actually do finishers."
Flying Edge, which was an Acclaim subsidiary, I think. Those the ones the Flying Edge did, same thing. Yeah. The Royal Rumble on Genesis was my first.
Royal Rumble was the one, man. That was the yes.
I agree. That's the first time that I remember like really enjoying wrestling games. Yeah, for the NES, like none of these the only one I ever knew existed. I was shocked to hear there's a sequel, and there's another one coming like a year from now, I guess. Yeah. So like I was shocked to hear those even existed. The first WrestleMania is terrible. If I'm playing an NES wrestling game, like I said before, I think Tecmo World Wrestling is probably my favorite.
Yeah, that one's still the best. It's still the best.
And I still kind of like Black Box Pro Wrestling is kind of good too. So by comparison, you know, at least. So yeah, the NES they didn't have it figured out. Like I said, and, even they added it here, the outside the ring stuff. But yeah, it's just there's so much. There's a lot more nuance to wrestling. Funny enough, even though it's like a joke as a real thing, than in a video game context, I mean, than these systems are capable of. So it's not surprising.
I got to be able to hit and grapple and
then do moves out of the grapple.
Moves out of the grapple. Yeah, exactly. I need all of that, and it's got to be easy to do and execute.
Right. And you need more buttons. Yeah, it's tough. I think on the NES for sure. Yeah, like I mean, even hearing that you can do, like it says you can do 8 moves. Like I played this game, like how? Like I mean, I know if I look at the instruction booklet, it'll tell me, and maybe even then I can even execute them. But just conceptually, I hear that and I'm like, how?
But in practice, like I understand because you're setting up the buttons. Like it tells you like which of these, like, oh, are you using this one, using that one, and I'm like picking a move to use. But like when I get into the game, like I'm just getting whooped. Like it's just
dude. I played as Ultimate Warrior actually versus Ravishing Rick Rude, and he stomped me 2 times in a row, fast as fuck, and I was done. Yeah,
like Hacksaw Jim Duggan is not being the Ultimate Warrior. It's not happening. I don't. You
know what the story, Jay. You know what the storyline is. You weren't in the fucking. Exactly. You weren't in the meetings. You don't know.
You saw who had muscles and who had a pot belly. Come on, beer belly. What are you doing?
Hey, dad strength is a real thing.
True, but like that. Freaking 2x4 is not in the ring. Therefore, he does not have an advantage, and Ultimate Warrior wins.
That's maybe something this game's missing. It doesn't have props. Yeah, that also would be a huge thing. That's another example, actually. That was the cool thing at Royal Rumble. You could hit each other with chairs and shit. You know, that was like simple shit like that.
That game?
You got to have that ridiculous shit, you know.
That game was a rent. Oh, Mom, can you please re-rent that game? Mom, can you please? Can we have that game again?
We played the shit out of that. Yep. Yeah, Slasher Quan, that prick, he's Also bitching about the run of the championship belt being way too easy. He says the challenge is dog shit, which is funny because we said it got it right. I mean, like I said, I'm sure if you know the moves, it's infinitely easier, so that's probably the deal. But he also bitches that it doesn't, and I agree with this for sure, that this was coming out in an era where the 4-player peripheral was hot, and the idea that wrestling with these tag team shit didn't utilize that was a huge miss, and I agree about that as well. Gives it a 68% Q. Not good, of course, but gameplay does get a 5. So, I don't know. Funny juxtaposition there, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. All the bitching and then having a 5 in any category was kind of surprising to me. Yep. $44.95 MSRP, and that is more modest than I would expect for a newly licensed shit from Acclaim. I would think that would be a 50 bucker, if not more. The first Genesis action we get is turning back the clock to Buster Douglas boxing. And I have to assume that's just them trying to slot some sports shit to fit the cover theme, because this has been out for a long time.
Yeah, what are we doing?
It's terrible. He gives it a piddly 60% cum, and that's perfectly accurate. No MSRP, and dude, more Al Nilsson information. Dude. Yes, so I got to the bottom of this, dude. I asked him, I'm like, listen, this is highly obscure, but we're talking about the magazines. And I'm like, why? We've been doing these, for a while now, and GamePro never has the MSRP for Genesis games. And I told him what we hypothesized about it and shit. And he's like, he thinks about it for a second. He's like, I don't think we gave out prices. In none of our press anything, we gave no one prices because the price was secondary. We wanted them to focus on the game and basically go to the store on that basis and deal with the price then. And I was like, that's kind of what we hypothesized. So I'm very proud of us, that we were able to kind of
nice
assume that were the case and be right about it, right from the horse's mouth. So that was cool.
Nice.
But yeah, fuck Buster Douglas boxing. That game's terrible. I want to like it too because the sprites are huge. It looks great,
right? It looks great. You want to like it.
Yeah,
we want to like it. I remember watching him knock out Mike Tyson. So I see the game. It's Genesis. Like it, of course, it should be great. Look at it. It's awesome. No, it's not awesome.
Funny. I remember. This is a funny memory. I have a memory of David Camargo bringing over his Genesis to my house for a sleepover. And he had this game, and I remember this game sitting on top of my TV, the box, and us playing it. I don't really remember whether I liked it or not, but I remember being in that bedroom because when I first, so it's funny, we had a 3-bedroom ranch-style house. It was my dad's house, and when I moved out, I was in this back room that had blue carpet, this blue weird-ass carpet, multicolor. I can't believe it was in the house. It was so ugly. But whatever, late
that was
80s.
life in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely hideous carpet. And then there was another bedroom that was my dad, parents' bedroom was always the same one next to that. And there was a spare bedroom that when I lived there alone, before Jab came into the picture, was just an empty room that was had a bunch of my fucking toys in it and shit. And I think it was an office technically. I don't know what they were doing office shit wise. Neither one of them had anything that needed an office, but whatever the case, empty room, spare room. And when I left with my mom and then he got remarried, Jab came into the picture. Jab took my old bedroom. So when I moved back, I had to go into that spare room. And I remember I spent some time in there. And I remember, I think I raised a stink about it or something and bitch. And we eventually swapped rooms, which is funny that I'm having this memory. I've never thought about that. I gotta talk to Jab about this and what he remembers. I'm
based on the way you guys talk, I'm shocked you didn't immediately be like, I need my room back.
I'm sure I probably, it was a tumultuous time, so maybe I didn't say it immediately. But, and I think also kind of, because I was coming over on the weekends every now and again, for this duration. So it was kind of quasi my bedroom when I was staying there, I think on the weekends maybe. So I kind of had a little bit of shit in there. But once I came back full time, I think, I was like, okay, it's time to put my foot down and get my room back. So that did happen. But anyways, this memory happens in that room, the yellow room, which is funny to me. Yeah, that's a funny memory. The yellow room. Anyways, so fuck that game. And the big Genesis spread this time around follows that. Say the basic 3-banger with the Genesis does with Nintendo headline. And then we get Hard Driving from Tenjin. And I've already praised this to no end as an oddity, like from an oddity perspective. But look at that fucking score, Jay. What did I tell you? 84%. A scalding
84% for 84% situation.
All 4s except a 5 in what? Fun factor, dude, because it is. That is its best thing. It's just like, I don't know why it's fun, but it is. I think it's probably, I mean, again, it's all emblematic of the times, like that 3D, even how slow and horrible it looks on the Genesis. Mm-hmm. The existence of that at all at this time on a console is just flabbergasting, probably. So that's where those high numbers and the other categories come from. And the music is good, so I buy sound, I guess. But, and you know, you can like hit the cow and the fucking cow moves. So there's some fun little sound effects too. Maybe that also fuels that. But yeah, the fun being 5 is spot on. It just is. I don't know why. It just is. And I thought that pretty fun. That I was surprised. I expected it to have a much lower score, I guess, is what I'm getting at there.
Okay. Fair.
$54.95 MSRP. Step up there. And then their last Genesis one is Super Volleyball, and this gets a fucking 80%. Again, it's just they're just fired up about Genesis games. Yeah, they're just fucking fired up about Genesis games, and yeah, an 80% for that game is fucking nuts. I mean,
like side view volleyball is tough, man. That's a bit tough. That's a tough one.
Yep,
it's hard. It's hard. Like I can't see my characters till the ball comes over. And then I don't know if I'm in the right position. I might not be controlling.
Like, it's just not. Yeah, it's definitely not an 80%. There's no fucking way.
I wanted to like it. Like as a former volleyball player, I wanted to like it. I just couldn't like it. Definitely not for 80. No chance.
The MSRP is at least a much more palatable $39.95. I'll say that for it. It's only a 2 meg cart, and that sounds right because it's not good. And then there is nothing new in the Genesis third-party licensee ad that comes after that either. So after these messages.
We'll be right back.
Give me the rock, give me the handles, give me the paint, give me the shoes. You have anything in a Gorilla Slam? Sweet. Give me that. Not that brick, that brick. Give me him, some of that, and one of those. Showtime. Take his move, his move, his move. Not that move, that move. Money. Gimme. My house. If it's in the game, it's in the game. Bulls versus Blazers for Super NES and now for Sega Genesis. Give me that again. Now for Sega Genesis. EA Sports. It's in the game.
That is an absolute banger of a commercial, a 1993 U.S. spot for Bulls versus Blazers. And it is awesome that they're already rolling with that. If it's in the game, it's in the game shit. I wouldn't have expected that came later in EA's lifespan. I was surprised that was in there. But yeah, the commercial is fucking great. It's like front to back, like really fast paced as fuck, like clever. Probably why I bought that Genesis game, you know. This
right?
Is the one
You're like, wait, I can play. It's like that. It looks like that for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that brick. That brick, like fucking just really good, you know, clever copy. Very good. Okay. Super fun to find on riding the coattails of fantastic fans. 100% for Lakers versus Celtics. Asinine fucking journalism there. SWAT hot tips, tactics, and passwords get us rolling on the closing act of the mag. Much more of the latter in here, passwords, and it's all, notably, all sports titles in here. So that's why it's passwords, because there's not really secrets in these games. But the one featured in here that I even wanted to talk about at all, really, probably, is the Baseball Stars from SNK. It's an 89 release, so it's been out for a while. And I honestly can't recall if I've ever done any time on this for the pod or not. But I know it's a game that people kind of remember fondly to some degree, and I don't really have any experience with it. But after having kind of like that vague recall of it being a game people like, both of those counselors talked about playing. That's all they did at Nintendo HQ, basically. They played a shit ton of Baseball Stars. So I was like, I got to give it a shot coming out, you know, after hearing that and seeing it here just randomly. And I think it's probably... It's right there, I would say, with RBI and Bases Loaded, which are the two that I think of as being and I'm saying, like, gameplay-wise, it's right there with them. And I think maybe the reason it's remembered so fondly, on top of just being equally playable as those games, is the, like, customization capabilities. I assume you didn't fire this up, but...
I definitely did not fire
Okay, yeah, so the customization capabilities in this... It's perfect for multiplayer. You can set up like a multi-team league, and you like develop the players and like decide your lineups. It's like proto Madden franchise type shit on an NES game. And then also the gameplay is good. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably why people really. I mean, it's got no license or anything, so you don't have any,
Right.
MLB players or no shit like that. But it is very. There's a lot of malleability to it. I think that makes it probably really attractive to kids of the time. So I can see why it's remembered fondly for sure. It looks good too. Like the opening title screen is really this cool ass fucking imagery and stuff, and the game looks good. I was kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed it, and having those pre-existing opinions of those other games that I thought were more well known, even though, again, over doing this podcast and hearing people talk about this shit, maybe not. Like, I think Baseball Stars might be the most fondly remembered baseball game on the broader landscape. So yeah, it's a good game, I think. And the codes here are kind of cool for it too. They mentioned that it's like an interesting way to do codes. Like I mentioned, this is mostly just passwords, and this is still kind of passwordy, but basically, you go in, you pick your teams, and you have to name them, I think. And the prompts when you select the team and are given that prompt to name the team, it has text that pops up in it already. And to get these like special situations with the teams, one being the best girls team in the game, and like ups all your stats and you become the best girls team. And there's another one that's just a standard team. It's a really good like iteration of the players. You basically just change the text to something similar and then enter that as the team name. And that's just a cool way to execute something secret like this, I think, So pretty cool. I also fired only one other in here too. I saw Rad Racer and Rad Racer 2 here, and those are games that just like I feel like they're like, especially the black box or silver box, I guess in the case of Rad Racer, but close enough. I just feel like they're like the stalwart historical games for the NES, so I want to like them, and I feel like maybe we should do a game episode on them from just like that perspective. Right. And Rad Racer is pretty fun. Like I think they're both. The problem with Rad Racer 2 probably is it's basically a carbon copy of the first game, so I don't think it needs to exist. But Rad Racer 1's actually pretty fun, and every time I play it, I do have fun. It's a little empty and basic, I think, to maybe do a whole game on. It's kind of like I was talking about for Arch Rivals. It's like it's fun while I'm playing it, but after 10 minutes, I'm done, and I'm all set. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the problem with that. But seeing it here, every time I see it, I kind of have that inclination of like, I feel like this deserves a game app, but I don't want to do it. I don't know. Was there anything in there that fucking you give a shit about?
Not really. I mean, I definitely fired up WCW wrestling, and gave that a try. It was still tough, Still, they had a kind of a different system. Yeah. But it was still annoying to have to be trying to kick and punch to try to get your grapple on, and then try to do a specific move. Yeah. With it,
I think it's between those two WWF games as far as quality goes, which makes sense. It's literally in the timeline of release in that order, so it makes sense.
So, yeah, frustrating, but
yeah, WCW, I can't even be like it's just so far from. Like I thought it was just such at that time, just so budget WWF. Like it was just to me, it was just so cheap, and I have no interest in this at all. WWF was so much more flavor. As far as everything goes.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
At the tail end of SWAT is a full pager from Renovation. That is what we were talking about earlier at the very beginning of the episode here. It's finally a new Genesis game. So that was interesting in and of itself, that we just have something new for the Genesis, as opposed to shit we've already seen a bunch of times. And this is Aeroflash, is the name of the game. And it's clearly a flying space shmup. And the story blurb is interesting, wild. In the 30th century, Viking terrorists, led by the vicious Great Helagi, are plundering and destroying planets throughout the galaxy. They move in warships capable of traveling in nether space, and Earth is their next target. And we play as the granddaughter of some great scientist on planet Earth, piloting the space fighter Chameleon ERX-75, which is capable of combat in this aforementioned nether space, and it also can transform into a robot. This is the greatest weapon ever developed by the United Earth Army, and it's good to hear, Jay, that we can get it together as a global people by the 30th century, and we stop squabbling amongst ourselves to unite as one. Or it might just mean that China has taken over everything and eradicated everyone else. That's also possible. But whatever the case, we are one people with one army as planet Earth, and we are defending ourselves against these Viking terrorists, right? And dude, I mean, I'm surprised. Again, you talking negatively about this surprises me. One, because it's a space shmup, but two, this is the company Renovations. They've had a few good ones. They did Whip Rush, which we liked, and I was hopeful for a Fire Up, and I did. I had a fucking blast, dude. I had a fucking blast. I just kept fucking playing this game. Oh, dude, what are you talking about? What was your problem with it?
It just wasn't fun. Like, I was flying, and the shooting was slow. Like, the shooting...
Oh, you got a turbo, yeah. I didn't have fun until I turned on my turbo either. You got to play with turbo. You got to play with turbo.
Turboing your Genesis? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, turbo Genesis controller. Yes, what are you talking about?
I don't know. Either way, I found the flying and the shooting very slow. Like, it trailed. It was annoying. When I changed to the robot, nothing was different. Like the robot, like when
this was cool though. It's only subtle differences. It is very different.
Like there's nothing. I was like, there's no advantage. There's no disadvantage.
The big difference is the power attack. When you hit C button is like your power attack. So that's completely different for the robot than it is for the standard ship. And then also once you power up, because you can switch between them interchangeably, so you can very clearly see the difference.
That's why I was like, I'm just going back and forth.
Okay,
but I was shooting the same.
Once you power your ship up, the changes of those power-ups, particularly the trailers, like you get those little ghost ships that trail with yours. Like on the standard ship, they kind of do this like where they're constantly emulating your behavior. You know what I mean? In kind of like a delayed way. Ghosts, I guess, is the way to think of them. And then as the robot, they kind of just become on each side of your character like these bonus shots. So it's like what's more valuable to you. You know, because you obviously employ those two things differently. Having the trailers allows you to kind of have residual fire and use them as...
Dude, you lost me on freaking powering up your ship. How do you even do that? Like, there's no powering up.
Oh,
I was flying and not powering up.
There's a million power-ups. The power-ups was constant, actually. I love that about it. It was all immediately different fucking kinds. And
if that was happening, then the power-ups... when I got them were subtle, and then I must have like died shortly after because I was just like, I don't understand why I should like this game at all. No wonder it's in the back. It's in the back of the mag for a reason, and I understood why.
Well, it's one of the third party ones. They just didn't have those third party developers for the Genesis early on did not. Like I said, we've talked about how I think the only reason they even could exist, they had to be subsidized by Sega in some way. Sega was just trying to get third-party support, even if they had to make it themselves. Right, yeah. So I don't think they had the money to be in the front of the mag, was the big part of that. But yeah, there's just something about these. I'm shocked. Dude, I hate this genre on NES. And I can't believe how every one of these Sega shmups, I am fucking loving all of them. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, yeah, dude.
Because it's a great genre. Like, they're the makers of the Raiden game and stuff. Like, you're going to like it. Like, that's just what they do.
I vaped all three phases of the first stage. Saw some cool-ass set pieces. There was just, like, in the beginning, you're, like, flying over those clouds. So you're, like, just above the atmosphere or whatever, which is a cool visual. And then for the second one, this big ship comes in and crashes into it's nighttime, and this big fucking ship comes crashing into the ocean and like sticks up out of the ocean the whole way. And then, you know, the ships are supposedly like, I got the vibe, are like coming out of that now, you know? So it was just like a cool visual development thing that was interesting and were nice set pieces. And then the good parallax scrolling for all that, of course, the Genesis, you know, so you get good parallax on all that. And then a pretty cool boss comes in, and I like had saved up enough of the power attack to just vape the fuck out of the boss, which is a good feeling, you know? So yeah, just a really good experience in the first level. And then I don't think I even died once I turned the turbo on. I mean, I got vaped initially, but once I fired up my turbo, I realized, I think my B button on my standard base controller is getting a little wonky. I need to clean it or maybe get a new one, whatever. Because I also thought the firing was fucked up. I was like, it's not firing fast. What the fuck's going on? And I think it's the controllers broke. But once I fucking got my turbo out, dude, it was a blast. Because I was just fucking annihilating things. But then I get into the second level, and no longer, like, the difficulty uptick was noticeable and substantial, even with turbo on. So, you know, it's not too easy, which I think is a good thing. Yeah, I'd play more in a heartbeat, dude. I'm sad to hear that you did not enjoy it at all, because I thought it was fucking a
The
really,
person
really
who
fun
hates
game.
flying shooters, all of a sudden, that is no longer a true statement we can make.
Yep. I don't know, man.
Wow.
The opening cinematic too, like those opening cinematic, like there. That's I think the headline I posted when I uploaded the video of this prologue. It's like, dude, it's like a full 45 seconds to a minute of like a really good, clearly communicated, developing setup story, and very anime in style, and like it's like two panels and like it's like alternating, updating the image in each panel. So like you're watching the one and like the next step in the story comes up before this one's over. So it's just a very good progress through a prologue. I think it was just well done, I thought. And yeah, all great looking art and just so fucking just everything about it. Good presentation, good music, good everything. So yeah, I just can't believe how every one of them I'm like, fuck, this is good. Fuck, this is good. Which is really surprising me. Because again, I didn't fuck with any of these. I have no actual when I had the Genesis, these still weren't on my radar. So I'm just shocked that all these existed and I hadn't really gotten into any of them. So
Love to hear that. Love to hear that.
Ask the Pros comes next, and the actual pro letters are both sports, Bases Loaded 2 and Tecmo Bowl, and I fucking love this Bases Loaded letter from Todd Wiley. I love that it's a Todd, of course, but even the letter itself is fucking great. So it reads, I've had Bases Loaded 2 for about a month, but I still can't beat my dad. He always takes New York, and they seem to be the best team. Is there any team that stands a chance against the NY squad? And that is just gold. Like that this kid's dad is just repeatedly and summarily executing his Todd offspring in the brand new NES game that he presumably got for Todd. It's just dad just kicking his ass.
For Todd.
Mercilessly, which is fucking great, dude. I just love it. And so I read this, and basically I've told you before, Bases Loaded 2, that's my baseball joint for sure. It's the one Ted had. We played a bunch of that shit together. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking to myself, like, New Jersey. It's New Jersey. It's fucking New Jersey. What do you mean? What do you mean? What the best team? It's New Jersey. Like, New Jersey is way better. New Jersey is fucking great. And sure enough, they come in here real hot with like, dude, New Jersey. Like they got the Ricky Henderson comp. This player, I remember the player names. Weir. He's fast as fuck. And and it's funny too because the manual has the stats, like the numbers for every team. So it's either he said he bought it. So I was gonna say if it's rented, one thing, you don't have the manual, sure. But Todd here's lazy. He's not reading the manual because you'd see that these numbers are better and have your own answer to the question if you took the time to read the manual. But whatever the case, yeah, you have Weir. He's fast as fuck. They go through the pitching lineup, and this is absolutely fire pitching lineup. And I remember every one of these names. They're absolutely right. Ruben as your starter, Skaja as your middle reliever. They say he's got the best breaking ball in the bigs, which is accurate. He's one of those, I've told you, those fucking submarine sidearm guys. And he's fucking, it's unhittable. It's basically unhittable. Those pitchers, at least when you're playing a person, the computer can hit them. But so he's great. And then Seitz, the closer, he's got a heater. Is also a really good choice too. So that was just really fun. That the letter and then me having the answer before I even read it was fucking really fun for me. Nice. So that was cool. And the Tecmo letter comes from P.W. Fitzgerald in Moonachie, New Jersey, and that's also another mouthful of a person and place. But he wants Team Recos as well, and they suggest the G-Men on the basis of LT's cracked up ass being the best defender in the league, and he is fast as fuck in the game. You block the PAT every time if you want, of course. They don't mention that specifically, which is kind of lame, I think, because that is an absolute truth that you can, especially playing the computer, you can fucking block the PAT literally every time if you're the Giants. And then the 49ers, because they're fucking all pros across the board, team of the 80s, of course.
Yep.
And then they mentioned in the last issue that they were going to start doing this, and they had their first installment of it here, but they're doing these Ask the Reader prompts this month, where they're trying to conjure some reader engagement. And they do this where they post questions that readers have written in with and ask the readers to write in the answers for them. So they want to hear if you have these answers. And the two games they're doing here are The Adventures of Link, and they want to know where the cross is located in that. It's a pretty late game item that is difficult to find, so I feel that. And then Phantasy Star 2, they want to know what's the best way to defeat Dark Force, and we don't know what that means yet.
Yeah. Well, what is that?
Being the neophyte to nothing stage of our side quest, but I look forward to having the answer many moons from now if we can ever get that shit rolling. When we get off here, actually, we're gonna nail down a date, or we're never gonna get started with that. So I'm gonna make Jab fucking commit to something. The short Pro Shots is also towing the company line of all sports all month. And this is what I mentioned earlier. They are explaining at the top of this that instead of doing previews, is what this usually is, of upcoming games, it is the top 10 carts selected by GamePros in the 1990 Sports Games Survey. And the rankings go as such from 1 to 10. Got Tech Mobile, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Blades of Steel, Track and Field 2, Double Dribble, Bases Loaded, Tommy Lasorda Baseball, Pro Wrestling, Baseball Stars, RC Pro-Am. And it likely doesn't need mentioning, but all those are NES games except for Lasorda at number 7. And I don't really have any qualms with this top 10 ordering, even though I obviously would put Mike Tyson first. I understand why some would say Tecmo first. I don't know. Do you have any problems with any of that?
No. I mean, it makes sense. Double Dribbles up in there. Definitely respect that. Track and Field 2, especially if you got the pad, like wrestling, pro wrestling.
You do this every time. That's not what Track and Field 2 is. Track and Field 2 is Konami minigames. You're thinking of world-class track meet. That's the power.
We do this every time. Exactly. Then
Track and Field 2 is minigames, and I think it's terrible, but I think some people like it.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about that one then, but outside of that, yes. No issue.
Yeah, it's crazy. That at 4 is nuts to me. I mean, Bases Loaded, Double Dribble will go ahead of that. Again, I already said Pro Wrestling. Baseball Stars, like I said.
Yeah,
there's another baseball game that goes above that. And it's also weird. I guess, it's a survey from last year. It's not like it just happened, so that's part of the problem there. But I was going to say Bases Loaded 2 is better than Bases Loaded 1 for sure, but like we said, it's not quite out yet. The one thing here, RC Pro-Am at 10, that's another game.
I was just looking at that.
That's a phenomenal game, and that's one I think also that deserves a game up, dude. And it's literally a blast to play. So
everybody plays that game. Like that's accessible.
And that would be fun to play
everyone.
co-op. That would be fun to play co-op too, or be head-to-head, I guess. But that'd be fun to play as a couch co-op.
Agreed.
Pro News Report winds us down on the issue. They go into more. So this is more about that Super Mario Club is what they call it, but it's in Japan there are 2,500 kids that are getting the Nintendo modem peripheral. I'm assuming for free to be part of this membership deal. And I would. They don't really explain how exactly it works as far as like how do you can't guarantee that the kids participate, I guess, is the biggest problem with this. But basically, yes, they're giving out the modem. And these 2,500 kids, theoretically, will be deciding the fates of Nintendo licensee developers' games in pre-release. So they'll be able to download the games via the modem, play them on their Famicom, and then rate them on a scale from 0 to 50, which I guess Nintendo, I'd never heard this before, this is kind of interesting, but Nintendo, I guess, uses a 40-point scale that they rate these on, and they communicate them to the developers internally. They don't release these numbers publicly, but when a licensee turns in a game for review, I knew that was part of the process, that Nintendo just gives them a grade and tells them this is what we think. You can still release the game if you pay the licensing fee, but if we think it sucks, this is what we kind of expect it to do in the marketplace. Fair warning, so that's interesting. And also, we've always talked about like we think it's maybe these magazines that might lead to games like that roller derby game being featured in a magazine and then never coming out. It might actually be like them turning to Nintendo and Nintendo being like, this game sucks, you better rethink it. And they because of that, don't release it. So that's kind of interesting to hear. But anyway, these kids are rating the numbers in the system. Nintendo is compiling these numbers real time and some network. And they are giving the publishers and the developers access to these numbers, at least semi-real time. They don't really specify, but you'd assume semi-real time and automated. And I guess the politics of this is it's controversial with the developers because it basically is going to mean like they're going to publish these numbers. So before a game even hits the stores, the retailers are going to know what games suck, at least in these 2,500 kids' view, and which is not how they're going to look at it. They're going to look at it as like, we're going to aggregate that across the masses. Man, they basically know tough. We know what games suck before we have to decide whether to buy them or not and put them on the shelves. And I can see why the developers are like, what the fuck, man? That's fucked up. That's not objective
not how this is supposed to work. Yeah,
it's not objective enough. So it's probably wrong in objectivity, but also just even if they could find a way to make it more objective, it still probably would be something the publishers wouldn't want. So that was super interesting to hear. That's how that was a plan that got like I said, and it's rolling. Like they had fucking dates for like when Game Boy games were being introduced, and it was already live for Famicom games, and that's fucking crazy. Like basically, like 2,500 kids. Like what I picture here, I'm reading this, I'm picturing Joaquin Phoenix and Gladiator just like giving that fucking like these fucking 8-year-olds with just like all the power, you know, like just sending games to their death.
Are you kidding me?
That's fucking crazy. Yeah, like that. They're not even like, it doesn't even mention. Like, yeah, sure, kids are your core target demo, but like, there should at least be a subset that's like some adults, some dealers, like something to kind of like the top 30 does. You have like the different categories that inform this aggregate.
This feels like, especially given the technology available at the time, like you're either living here in Seattle if you're doing it for Nintendo, or you're in Japan. Like you're geographically located close by. You're probably wealthy, so you can afford to like.
Right. So they have to be they have to be giving these out. I mean, I guess you still have to have the phone line.
That's what I mean. You still got to be able to like have the, the means to be able to do that and not have your dad go sell your Nintendo.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or some crazy worse thing happen. So it's like, wow. Like
which is probably why we never heard of this. I'm sure my expectation is we'll hear more later that either we'll never hear about it again, or we'll hear later that it did not work. At least in the way they had hoped. Or the publishers just eventually showed up with pitchforks at Nintendo headquarters.
Like, we have different ideas.
Yeah, this is not. Deal. We pay way too much for your dumbass licensing fee to have to deal with this bullshit. This is not fair to our pocketbooks, if not our actual developer sensibilities. But yeah, so I was saying earlier how I had made the connection until I started reading it, but. What the GamePro is doing, like picking a subset of kids to be the rating group, sounds an awful lot like this. And is even like the exact kind of number, just 1 0 less.
Right. Yeah. It does seem like they're like, oh, good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. So that's funny. Sequel Mania is the headline on a small blurb about the tent poles of the time, rolling out new installments soon. We have Bonk's Adventure 2 coming out on T16, a TMNT live-action movie sequel. That's exciting. They mention a Shadowgate 2, which would have fired me up if I'd have read that at the time. Mega Man 4 is already announced, even though 3 just rolled out. Tecmo Bowl 2, misparenthetical as Super Tecmo Bowl, not Tecmo Super Bowl. Very important to note. Deja Vu 2 also, so that Kim Koseka Mac Venture shit, 2 for both of those. Neither one of those ever come out either, so that's kind of a bummer. Super Mario 4, Double Dragon 3, and Gradius 3. So a lot of very, very big names on the horizon, at least supposedly here. Another small blurb provides some U.S. Census-ish data with a study performed by the Lifestyle Market Analyst 1990 study. And they have, so they tell us, this study rather tells us that Bluefield, Beckley, Oak Hill, which are, I guess, fucking somewhere in West Virginia, has the largest percentage of video game-enabled households in the U.S. at 13.7%. And that is a very rich-sounding area. Right. So I'm not surprised to hear that it has the highest in the U.S., I guess. And then the lowest is Sarasota, Florida, which I would not expect to be the anywhere in Florida, really, to be the lowest possible. I'd expect some kind of bumblefuck place to be lowest, where, like a very hill runner area where it's near nil. But even just the percentages are, neither is as extreme as I expected, I guess. Like 6.2 is higher than the lowest I would expect. I would expect somewhere to be closer to 0, And I feel like 14%-ish is also low for a highest number. You know what I mean? I would expect some more affluent areas.
Yeah, that's a little surprising.
To be a little higher than 14% at least. That's very small. But I guess it's early in the industry's timeline. Sure. But I mean, fucking Atari's been rocking and rolling since like 76 or 77. So that's 15 years.
Maybe there was still some strict no video game situation in a lot of
that's possible, I suppose. Yeah. So GamePro is doing an interesting giveaway promotion. They mentioned here it's in tandem with Natsumi, and they're giving away special carts of ISOH Game App alum Shadow the Ninja that have added password features to them. So they've changed the game code for these. I expected it to be like gold carts or something when I was first reading this, but it's actually changes to the code that give you passwords to jump to any level in the game, which sounds like nothing now because save states and Game Genie and all that, but at the time, that's a big different thing, for a very cool game too. So that was cool to read. And then Trade West did a launch event at the very bottom here. They have a picture of it for Solar Jetman, which I still haven't gotten us to play. But a nice mention of it here allows me an opportunity to talk about it if I want to. They did a launch event at FAO Schwartz on 5th Avenue in NYC back in October of 1990, where they brought in, this is a super interesting choice, I think, but they brought in Soviet cosmonaut Nikolai Rukavishnikov is his name. And I forgot to look up what he had accomplished, which is a mistake, and I wanted to, but I'm sure it was something very prominent, and that's why they chose him. But it's got to be, when exactly did the fucking wall fall? Is that 1990?
89 or
89?
Something around that time.
I guess the Cold War is over, so sure, but it is still, there's still anti-Soviet sentiment, so it's an interesting choice in that regard, but whatever the case. This claims that there were, I don't believe this at all. This claims that 40,000 Nintendo fans turned out, which seems a fucking insane number.
40,000?
Right. That's insane number of people to fit on that little corner plaza on 5th Avenue.
In New York City?
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, FAO's not there anymore. I mean, it is like an empty, like it's where the Apple Store is now, I guess, if you have any familiar with NYC. But it's, FAO closed a number of years ago now. But it was basically on that southwest corner.
40,000 is a stadium, Josh. 40,000.
I know. Yeah, exactly. There's just no way. The street would have been blocked, which I guess you don't see pictures of the street, maybe, but I don't see how that's possible. It's got to be hyperbole. But, it's a little bit receded to, like on that, it is a plaza. There's like open area there. And you also have the park is right there. And there's another plaza kitty corner. So there's actually, it's all, with the exception of the northeast corner of that intersection, which is a residential building, you have 2 plazas on the west side that I guess you could fit people in. So I don't know. There might have been a lot of people. 40,000 seems insane.
Yeah, that seems so much.
Yeah, it says Howie was in attendance of this. So I wrote it down in my list of questions for Howie, if I ever nail him down, to get the skinny on this. Because I want to know. Yeah, I want to know exactly what this was numbers wise, or at least a better idea. Because I don't see how it's physically possible. But coming off this rash of interviews, I have thought about maybe pulling the trigger on that. Like, we're late enough, and I have a decent little list of obscure questions. There's obviously broader things I could ask him. So I'm thinking I might actually try to ping his ass on fucking Twitter and make that happen. So that's probably our holy grail. I don't know what interview I could do for, like, in the idea of this podcast that's bigger than that, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess there's some developers maybe talking to that TechnoSoft or the RazorSoft guy. Maybe it would be an interesting one, just from a hilarity standpoint. But as far as actual clout in this early game scene, I don't think you get bigger than Howie, really. Him and Gail Tilden. But Howie's even bigger than her just because of the fucking comics and stuff. So I don't know. Shall see. But yeah, also we have Solar Jetman as a game app to do still. Did I mention that, Jay?
I think you may have.
Closing ads are all worth conversation. Tecmo's big brand ad with Ninja Gaiden 2 being the headliner. That's another one that's probably a game app worthy deal. We have Hard Drive-In that I keep touting up. And then Ultra has a new full pager for TMNT 2, the arcade game. That's a pretty cool ad. It's got 3 pictures at the top. It's got a TMNT arcade cabinet, just kind of normal, sitting there, taking up most of the frame. And then the same cabinet covered in mutagen ooze that's coming down from above, which is very cool. And then the next one is a relatively empty frame with just an NES box, real small, tiny, in the middle of it, of the TMNT 2 arcade game. So the idea is that Mutagen has turned it into this NES iteration of the game. So that's a fun marketing idea. And the headline reads, "The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have mutated again." And they are sure to mention that coupon for a free personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut even here at the bottom.
Can't forget that.
Yeah. That's competing with Yo-Noid's Domino's coupon. It's pretty fun. And this is another one that we haven't played yet, and I feel like might get discussed in the game app debate that will occur after the next music break.
That is Scene 3 Part 1 from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, on the NES, which we will talk about in a little bit, but not yet.
That's called foreshadowing. And the issue power meter cum for this bad boy was a 76%, tying the first rating appearance in issue 15. So it's, I guess, technically tied for the lowest. Both of them were the lowest. We've only had 4 GamePro issues with these rating systems in them. The 2 middle issues were some shit in the 80s. So our rolling average so far is a 79.44%. So ultimately that means below average. Even though we have a small sample size for this issue. But I find that interesting because I feel like this was an issue. I mean, I had like 7, especially if I impromptu go ahead and add ski or die to my lot here. Yeah. I had quite a few that I started with and had to pare down to a 4 count, maybe 5 if we add ski or die. So I have plenty to talk about, but by all means, start us off with, I guess, TMNT 2, since we already know that one.
Yeah, so that should be the nomination. But yeah, the arcade game modeled after Secret of the Ooze. I mean, it's a great game. I would love to play that again on my Cowabunga collection on my Xbox. I would love to do that. Yeah.
Well, we'd have to play that on Parsec is what we'd have to do.
Well, I know, but I mean, I would also play that
sure.
there as well. But yeah, 100% would play that without even question. Next would be Truxton. Yeah,
I was going through, so I was kind of, I was blowing through the notes on the tail end of this, and that Genesis ad was kind of late that had it briefly mentioned there, and I was like not gonna bother with those games because they're there, it's the same ones every time. Yeah. And I saw that Truxton was in there. I was like, I'll do it just for him. I'll put it in there just to remind him, because I know if they're in the notes, he'll bring it up. So I'll do it just for that.
Absolutely. And then third. Yeah, roller games. Like I said, finally got the hang of it. And I was like, I can't believe I went from like whatever to I could play this game. And there was a lot of other games which, were decent games, which could be getting some attention.
Okay. So I had a feeling that we wouldn't have any overlap this time. And that is why I chose this image behind me, this divisive.
Yeah, I'm like, what are these dragons?
This very divisive representation here of what I anticipated this debate to be. Okay, I hear all that. I have also in line with this image, Double Dragon on the SMS, and I feel really strongly about this, dude.
Wow.
I really want to turn back the clock to get some SMS due. I really, really want to do this. I think it's fucking super fun. I think it's got a couch co-op deal. I think that's fun. I also think it's kind of a simple game, so it's a nice breezy game up, which also is appealing to me. After kind of NES Play Action was a fucking bear, I think.
Yeah.
So I have that. I have Hard Driving. I've kind of already stated my piece on that. I just think it's such an oddity that I think forcing you into it, you'll have fun, and there'll just be so much fun shit to talk about. I have Arrow Flash, since I mean,
oh my God.
I have Flying Shmup. I don't know. I feel like we've done a lot of those lately. You have Truxton, I have this. I don't think I have a good argument to do this over Truxton. I'd rather just cancel a flying. Hey Miyagi. How about we don't listen to you? I start talking about Flying Shmups. Miyagi snores. That's my dog. So that's rude. I have that here. I also have RC Pro Am. This is another one. It's enough to turn back the clock that I kind of almost.
So different.
I almost feel it accomplishes the same. It's not, because, like I said, SMS just doesn't get enough love. So, and I think Double Dragon, like, I feel the fact that we haven't done any Double Dragon is crazy. It's like a seminal franchise in this era of gaming that we should have something representing it.
That's my thing.
And this is the best one.
You know me. I love Double Dragon. I disagree. I love Double Dragon. Out of all
the best one of the cornerstone of it.
That's fair. But like all the Double Dragon iterations, versions, systems, the SMS. I mean, granted, that is not a version that I am familiar with. It's not the Atari one. It's not the NES. It's not the arcade one. So, I mean, I'm not opposed. It's weird. It's a weird thing.
It's a weird choice. It's a weird choice. Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, if you want to envision it, just picture the arcade game, because I mean, it's the sprites are a little smaller. Mm-hmm. That's actually an arcade game that I have a better understanding of than a lot of arcade games because that one was at a roller rink, Starlight Triple T in Grafton. So that was one I remember playing a decent amount. It was one of the better, like that and Spy Hunter and also Double Dribble, funny enough, were arcade cabinets at that roller rink that I remember playing a decent amount of. Probably Double Dragon out of all of them. So I have like this very specific memory of Double Dragon. So like the sprites are a little bigger than they are in this SMS version. But other than that, dude, it feels exactly the same. And it's just Sega. Like Sega has, it has an arcade aesthetic to it. You know, that system does. So,
all right, Double Dragon.
Okay.
You can't twist my arm that hard for Double Dragon. It's Double Dragon. So.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I didn't even get to Skier Die. Skier Die will be present. I think we can play that for fun later. I think that'll pop up again. I don't think it's even been in Nintendo Power yet. And it's Konami, so they're going to give them some love. We'll see that again for sure. So that doesn't scare me either. Okay, cool. Double Dragon. That's easier than I thought. All right, great. So we will play Double Dragon for the Sega Master System and some serious turning back the clock shit next. And then we will turn our attention to Nintendo Power again. Sega's kind of on their fucking not frequent enough shit yet. Sega Visions 4 isn't until April of this year, so we have a couple of months. We'll be bouncing back between GamePro and Nintendo Power exclusively. But we have Nintendo Power 21, the February 91 issue, coming at us next. On the mag front, you can subscribe to the pod on the platform provided by whatever demos company that serves up your pottery. Please rate and leave positive shit for the pod on whatever platform you do listen to us on, or any other for that matter. And the website is nyehentertainment.com/ISOHpod. You can email us directly at isohpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the pod and banter with us on the Facebook page, the Instagram, the subreddit, and talk shit to us about our gameplay videos on the YouTube. The links to all those will be in the show notes. We do not have a Patreon, but if you like giving money to things that podcasters tell you to, I'd like to do so in our direction. The Able Gamers Foundation creates custom gaming rigs with gamers with disabilities, or for gamers with disabilities, and that is cool as fuck. AbleGamers.org is where you can find them. T-shirts on the website. They're dope, and proceeds on those after pod expenses go to Able Gamers. We're rocking them right now. Jay, tell us about your socials to interact with you on the interwebs.
Gentleman JB without the second E. That is my gamer tag, and where you can find me when I'm posting.
I am on Instagram at MyShapeKeyIsBroke. I'm on Twitter at Josh Folan. And my Oculus tag, if you want a Meow Wolf walkabout and probably mop me up, contrary to how I usually stand on my fucking walkabout merit or capabilities, you may find me at that handle. Okay, bye!
Bye.
That is the Ultimate Basketball on the NES. It's the game theme from that. Bringing us into our middle portion of this GamePro issue 18, and let's just try that again. That actually in an actually good way.
In an actual good way.